All right, good evening. This is the January 15th, 2020 City Council meeting, which I'm calling to order. The first order of business is the Pledge of Allegiance, so if you'd please rise. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, will the clerk please do the roll?
Councilmember Mills.
Here.
Councilmember Dennis.
Here.
Councilmember Thiede.
Here.
Councilmember Olson.
Here.
Mayor Bailey.
Here. All right, next on our agenda is open forum. This is the opportunity for anybody that wants to speak on something that's not on tonight's agenda is welcome to do so. We did have a sign-up sheet out in the entryway. We did have one individual sign up this evening, so I will invite Tom Nelson regarding permits. So Tom? Tom? Yeah, if you just want to state your name and address for the record and speak to us.
Yeah, my name's Tom Nelson. I live in St. Paul Park, 1033 Portland Avenue. I don't know, how long do I get?
3 minutes.
3 minutes? All right, I'm gonna read off this piece of paper. I'll probably read pretty fast because there's a lot of information here. June 18th, the building permit was approved for construction of a new home on my property. The building permit was signed 3 different times indicating that the footing, the foundation, and the unauthorized repairs of the foundation were inspected and approved by the city. I asked the 2 inspectors why they kept signing off on the building permit when there were still code violations. The inspector stated that the builder said that I said that I was okay with this. I told him I was not okay with this. The home builder is suing me for payment for their faulty construction. They tell me they will fix whatever the inspector tells them they can fix, but they're not gonna fix something that the inspector says is not broken. So I've written letters to everybody at St. Paul Park and Cottage Grove. The inspectors say everything's approved. The building official says everything's compliant. The city administrator for St. Paul Park says that Cottage Grove says everything is approved. Mayor Dingle says St. Paul Park says that Mayor Dingle of St. Paul Park says Cottage Grove says everything is approved. One of the council members from Cottage Grove says, just to note, you're certainly not gonna get anywhere by insulting everyone. The city personnel at Cottage Grove say if I wanna inspect public documents, that I can talk with the city's lawyer, even though Minnesota statute 13.03 does not state I need to talk to anybody's lawyer. The Department of Labor and Industry says these are code violations and that Cottage Grove has a lot of explaining to do. After a total of 18 months of dealing with this, the building official now says that the foundation is substantially compliant, there is outstanding and necessary corrective action, and that to date the building division has not inspected or approved any of the work which addresses these deficiencies. So the fallout of the city's refusal to enforce these building codes and the city's history of noncompliance with these building codes is costing me approximately $3,500 a month. I was rendered homeless. I now have to answer criminal charges for storing construction material on my property, and the total losses to date that I've suffered are approximately $300,000 over this mess. I'm wondering why the building official and the 2 inspectors still have jobs. I'm also wondering why this builder is still being issued permits for this area. And another dilemma I face at this point is I still own the property and I can't envision myself moving forward to building this house with the current building division staff still employed. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. And because just so, and this is just for the public knowledge, the reason he is speaking to us, we have a contract with the cities of St. Paul Park, Newport, Denmark Township, and where those cities have asked us to do inspections and permits and so on. So I just want to mention for the public, if you're wondering why he's talking to us about St. Paul Park, okay? Nobody else, thank you. Nobody else did sign up, but in case somebody came in that wanted to speak to council this evening, that's not on the agenda. Does anybody want to? All right, I will go ahead and close open forum, and we'll move to number 5, which is adoption of the agenda.
Motion to adopt the agenda.
All right, we have a motion by Councilmember Dennis, second by Councilmember Thiede. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Next this evening, we have presentations. We have 2 this evening. The first one is a presentation for Girl Scout Gold Award to Claire Boudreau from Troop 51437, and it is Boudreau, right? Boudreau, yeah. Boudreau? Oh, did I say a little funny? You're okay. Okay. And then Eagle, it's funny because I was making a comment, brother, sister, this is kind of cool. Eagle Scout Awards, Louise Boudreau, Is that what you're trying to say? Troop 9005. So we're going to keep having fun with you guys tonight. So if council would join me down in front, and we'll have the two of you come up. Yeah, that's what I was thinking of. Related to the wild players? Oh, does it? Oh, it does? Wow. All right, so we're here this evening, as I was kind of prefacing a little bit before the meeting here. The City of Cottage Grove celebrates the opportunity to recognize both Girl Scout Gold Award recipients as well as Eagle Scout Awards. And the reason we do that is it's really shows your leadership and your abilities to move kind of to the next level, I guess, is probably the best way to put it. And so we're here this evening to recognize the projects and the things that you did, the both of you did, to achieve your particular award and rank within those different groups. And so I will read from the plaques here in just a minute, but I also want to mention, because we, and this is well before me being mayor, it goes way, way back, we do have a section out on our hallway, and it's moved from what used to be our old City Hall on 80th Street. Now we have it over here where we recognize you for the future. And I was just joking, I will say it then, because your dad was commenting about this too. I said it's really kind of cool because you can take your kids up here later in life and show them your name on the wall at City Hall. And I always mention too, Councilmember Thede has kids that are up there. I have my son who's up there. Yep, two of them, right? Daughter and a gold award, yeah. So it's pretty cool, and so I wanted to mention that that's going to be out there, and it's out there today, so you can check it out if you want, if you haven't already done so. But that's how important this is for us to recognize this kind of success. So I am going to go ahead and read the plaque first for you, Claire. So Claire C. Boudreau. I'm going to keep her laughing here. Troop number 51437, congratulations on attaining the Girl Scout Gold Award, presented January 15th, 2020, from the City of Cottage Grove, Myron Bailey, Mayor. So on behalf of myself and the rest of the council, staff, and the citizens of Cottage Grove, congratulations. All right, there you go. We'll do it again for you. And now we'll do your brother, Louis, sorry, I said Louise, didn't I? Yeah, sorry. Louis D. Boudreau, congratulations on attaining the rank of Eagle Scout through Troop 9005, Cottage Grove, Minnesota, presented this 15th day of January 2020 from the City of Cottage Grove, Myron Bailey, Mayor. So I know it sounds repetitious, but on behalf of myself, the council, and the staff, and the citizens of Cottage Grove, congratulations. All right, and so now we get to hear a little bit about your projects. So we'll go ahead and start with you.
Hi everyone, I'm Claire Boudreau, and my Girl Scout Gold Award project, I focused on improving communication at St. Ambrose of Woodbury Catholic School between the school itself and then our alumni, because Louis and I are both alumni of that fantastic school, and I did this by creating an Excel spreadsheet, like a new updated database that the school can use to contact alumni and invite them back for volunteer opportunities, because there is a plethora of them at St. Ambrose. Things like the Christmas program, Grandparents and Special Friends Day, and just helping out in classrooms. And I had, throughout the course of the project, I had some of my alumni friends help me, I had Louis help me, and just other alumni that graduated from school. So I just wanted to thank you, Mr. Mayor, and the rest of the council for giving me this opportunity to present it. So thank you.
Hi there, my name is Louis Boudreau, and for my Eagle Scout project, I renovated a sandbox and pavilion structure at my old preschool, the St. Ambrose of Woodbury Early Childhood Education Center. The wood of the structure was warping and splintering, and thus a lot of kids were getting hurt by it, so I took a composite decking material that's basically maintenance-free and won't splinter or warp over time, and I covered the structure with that, so now all the kids are able to play safely and not get hurt. And I would just like to thank the mayor and the rest of the council for giving me the opportunity to present this. Thank you.
All right, now do you want a group picture? All right, we'll all tighten in here.
Louis, congratulations. Well done. You guys did a great job with your presentations as well.
You just screw them up, Dave?
Did you give him the funky shape?
Yes, I'm sure he did. All right, that's always fun to start off the evening. And then we have a second presentation this evening, which is the Cottage Grove Housing Market presentation by the St. Paul Association of Realtors, Area Realtors, excuse me. And Matt Wolf is going to start this process off.
Yes, thank you, Mayor Bailey and City Council members. The St. Paul Association of Area Retailers, otherwise known as SPAR, is dedicated to home ownership in the East Metro here. They offer a wide range of services, but one of the services we often look to is their comprehensive statistics that they have on housing. With 2019 coming to end, SPAR reached out to us and asked if we were interested in hearing about some housing data for Cottage Grove. We thought it would be a great idea as we continue to look to diversify our housing options in 2020 and beyond. So with that, I'd like to turn it over to Kyrie Duckett. He is the St. Paul Association of Area Retailers Government Affairs Director.
Welcome.
Thank you, Mayor Bailey and Council. Thank you again for having me. First of all, I want to mention the presentation that happened here first. You have some very well-spoken young people who are doing great things in your community. You must be very proud. That makes it a tough act to follow on my part, but I do thank you in advance and again for allowing me to be here. Just to reiterate what Matt has said, my name is Kyrie Duckett. I'm the Government Affairs Director for the St. Paul Area Association of Realtors, otherwise known as SPAR. And I'm going to speak a little bit about SPAR to begin with to give you some context for why I'm here beyond me liking the sound of my own voice in front of important people. To give you some context on SPAR, the first graph on the left shows the jurisdiction of our membership. SPAR is a local realtors association, so anyone who has the name realtors attached to their licensure or their title is a member of our association if they live in the East Metro, which covers the blue area on the left, which is 12 counties from Faribault and Goodhue, Zumbrota area, all the way up to Pine City. And in those 12 counties are also 200 municipalities. Those are our jurisdiction as a local association. So when it comes to policy developments, the relationship me presenting to you, that's where I have jurisdiction over, but our members are also members of the Minnesota Association of Realtors and the National Association of Realtors. Just as a side remark, the National Association of Realtors is the largest trade organization in the entire United States, representing over 1.4 million members throughout the entire country. Just to also give context, SPAR, our motto and our mission is better agents, better communities. So part of my job and our association work is making sure the folks that are selling homes in your community are doing it with professionalism and integrity, and that they're contributing to making your community better, both in the marketing to potential clients and residents, but also in giving back. And we're going to talk about a few of the ways that we give back as an association. I mentioned all of these again. The last point is especially important given what Matt has told us already on the data that we have. SPAR is a majority shareholder in the regional MLS, which has the listings of every single house in our area. That MLS covers about 90% of homes listed in Minnesota. That data is important because we get that, and that shows us what homes are selling at, what price points they're selling at, whether that's new construction, previously owned, and we're going to go through some of that data as well. But that's why we believe we're best positioned to have conversations like this, because we have the most comprehensive data on home sales in your community. As I mentioned before, better agents community, better communities is our motto. And we do that through 4 separate, what we call pillars. And I'm here to talk about the last pillar, which is advocacy. But there are also other elements of our organization's mission, which goes to communications. It's pretty self-explanatory. The professional development, so that's your code of ethics, making sure that our members are following fair housing laws, that they're following anti-discrimination statutes, and that they're giving equal opportunity to everyone in our communities. And then the advocacy portion, that specifically goes to making sure that our members know what it's like to sell homes in your community. If you had any sign ordinances around open houses or articulation requirements when it comes to building, but also advocating for what we believe is in the best interest of expanding home ownership in your community is also part of our mission. The other part of that advocacy is, and community outreach is also giving back. And I've talked with Matt some in the past, but I also want to make sure you have the opportunity to learn. We have quite a few grant opportunities. Our members give back over $200,000 here in SPAR alone to our communities in our service area through these grant opportunities and through our charitable foundation. If you'd like to learn more about these, I'd be happy to have a conversation with you offline, but they largely focus around placemaking, making sure there are great public amenities in each of our communities, housing opportunity, that we have good housing stock at all price points, and then smart growth, that our streets, that our homes, that our public spaces are accessible and safe for every mode of transportation and every member of our community. To go through brass tacks of what we're talking about today, I want to show you some great data for the good housing market that you have here in Cottage Grove. And I can tell, don't tell my friends in St. Paul this, but this is probably the nicest city hall that I get to go to in doing this job. And I think not that city halls are the focal point or just the locus of a community, but it speaks to the management that you have, both I'm assuming through excellent staff here today, but also in the leadership that you've had in your community throughout generations. To speak specifically about the data, you probably already know there are lots more homes in Cottage Grove than there have been in the past 2 or 3 years even. And we're seeing in 2019, our most comprehensive data to date was in November of 2019, 20% increase in year-to-year sales of homes in Cottage Grove. That's just homes. That's not saying the price points or anything. That is abnormal, to say the least, in the metro area and in Washington County. Just because homes are listed, though, doesn't mean that all homes sell. You're still seeing a 16% increase in the number of closed sales in a year. That's kind of where my job becomes more important. What stops a home from being listed to actually being sold? There are a lot of different negotiations that go on. There are a lot of different obstacles that happen in the public policy process, and we're going to talk about some of those. The median sales price in Cottage Grove is about $10,000 more than the metro average, which actually for a community of your size and demographic character is pretty in line when you think about the income gaps between Ramsey and Washington County, not to say anything about the education and demographic differences in your community. And the last thing I wanted to mention on this slide that we'll go into a little bit more is the days on market till sale. So the year to date in 2019 was 35 days till from offer being accepted to house being listed publicly on the market. And that's a little more than what we're seeing in most metro communities, but as you know, the housing stock in Cottage Grove is a little more expensive than you might see in the core communities of St. Paul and Minneapolis, where you see a lot more entry-level homes. That's some of what I talked about in the last update. And this is showing you the change in median sales prices throughout the entire metro, the 16-county metro, which is that gray bar, and the green is Cottage Grove specifically. And there's a lot of variation there, and you probably know better than I do what contributes some to that. But what we see, especially in the past year, are weather changes. Builders, they can't do their jobs the same when it's polar vortex is going on as they can even when it's 10 degrees outside. And the other contributor to that we've seen in the metro area is labor shortages and the tariff obstacles we've seen in national politics as well. And that's on the builder side. And I'll try and get through that real quick as well. This graph shows our supply. For a healthy real estate market, for sales to go through it, what you want to see is about a 6 months of supply at any price point. And what you see on this graph is that at best, for homes that are above the median sales price in your community, you have about 3.5 months worth of supply. What that tells us is it's a seller's market. That means if you're listing your home tomorrow, you can expect to get about 100%, around 100% of what you list that at as the offer, your first and best offer on your home. So that's for houses above the median price point. That's that red line that we see on top. The green line is for all price ranges. The tightest market, I don't need to tell you, is for those homes that you would largely consider entry-level homes, for those below $280,000. And that's actually better than what we see in the county as a whole. So what that tells us that the builders in your community and the housing stock, the previously owned housing stock, is actually a bit more accessible than what you see in your surrounding communities in your St. Paul parks. If I was to drive further down to Hastings, you actually have a better supply there than they have there, and that's to say nothing of Woodbury. The days on market, once again, I want to dig a little deeper into this, especially for your homes that you're seeing below the median sales price. The about 15 days between a home being listed and a home offer being accepted is not actually that the home being accepted. It's the first raise of hands or show of hands homeowners in the community, just in the crowd as well. General, okay, sorry. I'll be more declarative in my questions next time. You know that process includes a rescission period. It includes your inspection contingencies. And so to have a market for entry-level homes in which you're seeing less than 20 days till an acceptance of that offer means that homes are showing at an open house on a Saturday and offers are coming in that Monday. That's how tight the market is here in Cottage Grove. And it's a little less tight if you look at the rest of the county. The last thing I want to hit on, especially for a community like yours, which is seeing additional developments, isn't completely looking for infill redevelopment. There's still some building out to do in your community. Correct me if I'm wrong there. Okay? Is that new construction really is the name of the game. And so what we're seeing in the supply of new construction is that you're actually building at a healthy rate, that the market supply is nearly what we would expect in a healthy market, right around that 6.0 market. And so what that tells us is, what do we want to do around naturally occurring affordable housing, that NOAA housing, the reconstruction, the redevelopments? How do we incentivize? Because that market is really tight. It's still below 2%. Those are the questions that we want to have a conversation about, and we want you to keep in mind as you're developing housing policy. And I want to, again, compare that to the county. The county is doing about the same for the new construction, but it's actually doing better. What other things are happening in your surrounding communities that they're doing a better job of having a more available supply of those previously owned construction types in your surrounding communities? And so I didn't give a lot of answers, first of all, because I don't know a lot. My wife will tell me that quite often, and I have to humble myself in those circumstances. But I'm fairly new to my job. I'm 7 months here at SPAR. I've worked in public policy before, and I don't lead with this, but I'm from Iowa, and I know you folks have a complex about that as well. So I'm starting to learn the answers to some of these questions as well, but we want this to be an opportunity to start a conversation to show some of the baseline data and to help that guide your decisions. So with that, I thank you again for your time today and want to open it up to any questions that you might have.
Sounds good. And so you're from Iowa? All right. So I'll start with Councilmember Dennis, and then we'll go to Councilmember Thede. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor. And Kyrie, welcome here to our City Hall. I do want to first thank you for sending out the emails that you send me periodically.
them.
I do. And both Mayor Bailey and I have the privilege of leading the Economic Development Authority for Cottage Grove, too. So obviously, it's a really nice thing to have someone like yourself with background and understanding. And even though it might only be 7 months, I'm sure you're pretty much an expert in your topic of conversation here. So
I'm going to tell my wife you said that.
Yeah, a couple things I wanted to mention real quick. Number one, I think we have to give some of the credit to the great team of local realtors that we have here in Cottage Grove. There's a number of family-owned businesses and other groups that work together, and I think they do a really, really nice job of representing the housing stock that we have here and working between seller and buyer. So that's a big benefit. The other thing, we've been working on for the past 5 years, working on ways of improving our full spectrum housing opportunities. And so Cottage Grove historically has been kind of a bedroom community of single family houses. And so we're working really hard to try to add in, things like more townhomes and high density housing and these types of opportunities. So I would love if you could take just a second and maybe share some thoughts, especially to the community at large, and talk about the benefits that we get by bringing some more high-density options and some newer types of housing opportunity to the area, just so people can hear it from someone besides the council.
Mayor Bailey, Councilmember Dennis, thank you so much for that question. It's a tough one, especially folks who move into your community either today or 20 years ago, have an expectation of what the community is going to look like and what they're buying into. And so the biggest struggle that we have among our membership, needless to say, but among the consumer base as well, is how do you balance the interest of long-term appreciation of the value of homes in your community while also keeping the character that people come to know and expect in a community like yours. I can speak generally, not just to Cottage Grove, even though Matt and I have had some of these conversations, the benefits that we see in density from a realtor perspective, but also from a community perspective. And the first benefits, going back to that brass tacks, is that when you're able to add more units to developments, you're changing the price point for a builder, first and foremost, without changing anything about incentives or TIF policy from a council or public policy perspective. If you're able to add more units, in most general cases, you're able to change the margins that a builder is able to create when they're building their products. My friends or colleagues at the Builders Association can speak more to that, and I know they hit you over the head with that sometimes. But that's our general perspective, that density allows the price point to change and allows a greater diversity of products within that dense community. So you spoke to townhomes, senior apartments, workforce. When you have that density, one of the benefits that you have with that generally, and especially when we think about our comprehensive plans, is that you're changing the transportation options around that area. You're changing the business climate around that area with multi-use developments. So you're having retail in the area. And I don't mean to take away from your professional staff that you have here. I'm a junior economist, a junior planner. I get to be a joke of all trades and a master of none when it comes to these things. But that's what our members tell me. And so I thank you again for the opportunity to share that with the public writ large, because anytime we talk about density, I'm particularly concerned, and some of our members are concerned, that we hear language that isn't welcoming to all members of our community. And so we believe in the diversity of a community, having options in our housing stock at all price points. Our members believe, regardless whether it's St. Paul, whether it's Cottage Grove, or whether it's Faribault, that we want consumers to have access to a diversity, to a spectrum of products at all price points, whether they're a widower in their 80s that is just trying to maintain their current reverse mortgage, or whether you're a first-time home buyer like my wife and I, who are trying to enter a community because living in the city is very difficult when you grew up in a town of 500. So thank you again for your question.
Okay, so thank you. So based upon, again, that expert opinion that you shared, as you look at the achievements that we've had here, would it be fair to say that you feel that we're doing a good job as a community in trying to provide these additional opportunities for people?
Absolutely. Cottage Grove is doing better than most. Mayor Bailey, Councilmember Dennis, thank you again for that question. I think the planning that Cottage Grove is doing in that area should be envied by many of your surrounding communities, and I think that shows in the success of the data.
All right. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
All right. Councilmember Thiede?
Just out of curiosity, do you guys keep any data on like rental, like homes that actually end up getting rented out?
Mayor Bailey, Councilmember Thiede, we don't have specific data on that. We can use proxies basically and the data based off of the American Community Surveys and what we see in the MLS. But we think your planning department and your community development departments are much better equipped to speak about that. Especially, correct me if I'm wrong, Cottage Grove has rental licensing in your community, and so not that everyone complies with that, but that's a better proxy. That's a better estimator than the proxies we can find in our data.
Okay, thanks.
Okay. Councilmember Olson?
Thank you very much for being here tonight. Appreciate it. I've had the opportunity to speak with your membership on a couple of different occasions. Most recently for a political endorsement, because you do have a political arm. You have people who advocate for public policy, such as yourself, and like to speak to elected officials about some of the things that they are concerned with. And one of the things that I heard clearly when I met with them most recently was that there still was some concern about bank-owned properties, foreclosure, some of the folks who entered the market perhaps at a greater price point than they might be able to sustain over a long period of time. I wonder if you have any thoughts on that issue globally, but more specifically countywide and even within the city, in terms of, ways in which communities can help people stay in their homes. What are the things that we can do to ensure that we mitigate some of those concerns? People hear that it's a very healthy housing market, and your data supports that. But I think one of the little-known secrets right now is that there are still people who are really struggling. So do you have any thoughts you can share on that?
Mayor Bailey, Councilmember Olson, thank you for that question. I wanted to begin by saying that we are very careful about what we do and don't bring into City Hall. That being said, we're not unaware that it is an election year for you folks. That being said, when we think about, like you said, globally, from a global perspective, our association is interested, first of all, in home ownership, and second of all, in private property rights. Because if you don't have rights in that property, what does it actually mean to own that home? So when we talk about ownership, it's sustainable home ownership, and from a holistic perspective, we think some of the best tools that we've seen from the metro communities we have here in St. Paul and from my colleagues across the country are how a community utilizes their community development agencies, specifically for Washington County, and the tools that we get from CDBG funds, from home funds, from ESG funds. There's a lot wrong with St. Paul. They give me many headaches. That being said, the way they leverage the philanthropic giving, the business and private sector community giving for those funds can go a long way to assisting gap financing for someone that is facing foreclosure, whether it's a 1-month scenario and making up a missed payment or a longer term scenario. Those first-time homebuyer grants, especially for folks that are below the area median income. I know that's different in a community like yours as compared to our urban core communities, but those are things that we start thinking about and addressing. And correct me if I'm wrong, I think I saw a letter of support from Habitat for home funds here. That's something that we want to give more efforts to. So if we can ever be an assistance to speaking to that with our data, we want to be a partner in whether that's the CDA here or working with Minnesota Housing Finance Agency, we want to be a partner in that work as well.
And something else that your membership expressed concern about was the change in the tax code for last year and how that related to the ability to take deductions for mortgage interest. And, they saw that as perhaps a hindrance to some people entering the housing market. And so it sounds as though, some of the opportunities that you're presenting relative to, angel financing and various outside agencies who support homeowners through difficult situations. I know that there's an agency in Washington County called Family Means that gets involved in things like that, HUD obviously. That might be some ways for people to get through those difficult times. In particular, now that they can't write off as much interest. And so, where home ownership was seen as a tremendous investment and, it's going to pay dividends in the long run. Some people are a little less likely perhaps to enter the market, or they're a little more conservative because they're concerned about whether or not they can truly afford that piece of property that is their dream, that they want to, raise their families in, et cetera. So if you have any resources or data that you can send to me or to us as a council that we might be able to share with our constituency relative to people who might be in those situations, I'd certainly welcome that.
Mayor Bailey, Councilmember Olson, I want to go back. I didn't answer the first part of your question, which talked about investment properties. I think one reason that a community like Cottage Grove and communities throughout the metro are seeing more of that is because the recession in 2008 was the first recession we saw in the past 50 years in which home values actually decreased. And that was because of the specific circumstances surrounding that recession. We don't deny that real estate investment is an important part of the real estate transaction in the community. And so that's why we think we're seeing additional investments and speculations in communities like yours where land prices, you're no Lakeville, but like land prices are going up and there's that expectation. To go to what you just mentioned about resources for individuals as well, that's part of my job. I'm still learning and it's my job to be a conduit for communities like yours on that end. And so I appreciate the opportunity to stay in touch.
Yeah, you're from Iowa. We'll give you time. Yeah, thank you.
All right, so Kyrie, I had a general question, and it maybe piggybacks a little bit on what Councilmember Olson was saying. Does SPAR have kind of a sheet, if you will, or a policy stance on things? And the reason I'm bringing this up is, one of the things that we did in the city of Cottage Grove is we identified early on that years ago that we had an issue where our seniors had to leave Cottage Grove in order to find affordable, apartment living or whatever. And so we worked with a couple entities, Presbyterian Homes and Dominium, to build some products here in Cottage Grove. And what that did is it helped open up some of those starter homes to those that maybe can't afford the $300,000 to $700,000, $800,000 homes that are now being built in Cottage Grove. I think a lot of that is, there's some of that still happening, but a lot of that's gone now. So one of the things that we're looking at is we're trying to figure out how do we provide more affordable housing options. Yes, we're dealing and working with Habitat, but those are kind of onesie-twosie things. But the other thing that we're really challenged at is bringing in workforce housing of some type. And the reason I say it's challenging is because there's monies that you have to qualify for, there's only a small pot of money, and by the time, and we've seen it happen here already, where we've had some developers come to town with some great projects, but they didn't score high enough because we're not in the inner core of the city. And it's not just us, I mean, other cities are having that too. So do you guys have a stance on that? I mean, do you lobby up at the Capitol to say, hey, we need more money for affordable housing options? Or, I mean, I don't know if you can comment on that.
Mayor Bailey, members of council, thanks for that question. I think that plays into some of what Councilmember Olson was saying as well. Because our jurisdiction just is with cities and counties and with the Met Council. We're very stay in your lane that way. And so when we talk about the tax environments, what people are able to do with deductions, and what funding comes from the state level, we do leave that to our partners at the state association, but we really rely on you as well. I know you have legislative platforms that you work with at your counties and communities at this size. I believe, I'm assuming that there's an annual legislative document on what you talk with your legislators about. So we really put the onus on the communities that we can lend staff resources to shaping, to bringing realtors as a voice to that product. But at the end of the day, I cannot put my name or the association's name to something that influences state level legislation. That being said, especially when we talk about the SALT exemptions that have changed in the tax laws and the standard deduction, which my wife and I are now experiencing for the first time, having bought our first home last year, that doesn't speak so much to the real estate product as individually. It's really what the tax environment is here in Minnesota. And that's one place I do like to beat up on Minnesota a little bit. To answer your question directly, we do have a number of public policy statements on issues that do concern local communities, whether that's vacant buildings or point of sale inspections, which we see a lot in other communities. You can tell my disdain from that just a little bit. We do have policy statements on that. But anytime that we start talking about state, national level policies, we want to bring our members to the table. If you as a community ever have a forum where you're developing those policies, I'll try my best to get 3, 4, 5 realtors who live in your community to give their voice and their say, because they're the ones doing the work. But that's not something we take an association effort on.
Okay, and thank you for that. Again, my whole purpose behind it was, you mentioned briefly a little earlier about the builders associations. They've kind of taken a very proactive stance on city fees and things like that, which, I can literally say Cottage Grove isn't having an issue with them on that. But what they're proposing could negatively affect our ability to do our building and things in Cottage Grove. But at the same time, it would be interesting to see what some of the stances are you have. So if you would, I know Councilmember Olson asked about sending him or us some information. I'd love to see what the SPAR's kind of guiding principles of policies would be. That way we have an idea.
And I would, Mayor Bailey, members of council, I would actually appreciate your help getting the word out about something we're doing differently. Our government affairs, our advocacy efforts in the past have been all our membership expecting them to show up once a month in St. Paul and speak about everything. And we're changing that up a little bit, because I know, being from a town of 8,500, I consider myself a rural Iowan, that the same issues that we face in the city are not the same ones we face in Washington County, let alone Goodhue or Rice County. So our efforts this year we're breaking it up into 3 subcommittees, one that focus on the inner core and 2 others that focus on the northern and southern suburbs. And so in the coming months, I'd be excited if any members of council here would join us at one of those meetings. You guys would be a great draw to get some of our membership there, because what we're trying to do is focus it on the issues in local communities, answering those issues. The other thing I want to address, Mayor Bailey, in your previous question is the consumer education part, which is the toughest part. People are always relearning. I'm 25 years old, for better and worse, and so that means I haven't done a lot of things for the first time in my life. When we bought our first home, we didn't know about all the resources available to us. That's part of why I'm here today, is we want to let you know about the resources we have as an association, because for me to get buy-in from my staff leadership, from my members, it's letting them know that folks like you care about that. I want to speak to one specific opportunity, if I can, that you might be interested in on the consumer education. Through the National Association of Realtors, we have what we call a consumer advocacy grant. That allows us to bring $35,000 into a community and message, whether that's digitally, through traditional advertising, through mailer pieces, message on a consumer piece of housing that your community needs help in. That's free dollars that come from our association, from the National Association. And so if you folks are interested in an opportunity like that, where you have something, you talked about workforce housing or senior housing, that we can couple those funds with, your buy-in is necessary in order to get that project going. So I'm not here promising that's gonna happen every year for every project, but that's an opportunity that we haven't utilized in a long time, but that would be essential to communities like yours as well.
Perfect. Well, and I appreciate you offering that opportunity. I saw our administrator writing things down over there, because I think that is part of the message. It is exactly. I mean, we struggle even as a city with all the different means that we try to get communication out to our citizens. I think the more that we could do that to help those, because I mean, it was mentioned earlier, anybody that might be having issues, with the home ownership or whatever, they're not necessarily out there broadcasting it. So if there's some options out there, I think that would be great. Yep, perfect. Well, thank you. Any other questions, Council?
Thanks a lot.
Thank you so much
Thank
for
you again
coming
for your
and
time.
welcome to Minnesota.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
All right. Next on our agenda this evening is number 7, which is consent calendar. Is there anything council would like to pull on consent? Councilmember Dennis?
Mayor, I will pull item I.
Item I. All right, and
J and M.
and then Councilmember Thede, I think you said J and M. Okay. All right. Anybody else? All right. So we'll go ahead then. We'll start with Councilmember Dennis. You're going to talk about accepting some donations for the fourth quarter.
I am. Thank you, Mayor. And this is something that I look forward to talking about every quarter, because this is an opportunity to recognize individuals or businesses who have donated some financial results to the city to help make a difference. So in this particular time period, which ran between October 1st and December 31st of 2019, we had 2 donations. The first one was received by Sandy Fuller in the amount of $5,000 for the Settlers Island project. The second from the Cottage Grove Athletic Association for Hamlet Park improvements of $7,846. So we very much appreciate those donations. They make a great difference here for the community. And as I always like to mention, no donation is too large or too small. Every bit of generosity is greatly appreciated and counts toward making our community be a better place. So as it states on the document here, now therefore be it resolved by the City Council of the City of Cottage Grove, County of Washington, State of Minnesota, that the donations received between October 1 and December 31st of 2019, listed in the resolution totaling $12,846, be accepted on behalf of the city operations they were designated to support, with sincere thank you from the City Council.
Thank you. Perfect. And then Councilmember Thede, yours were regarding some of the road projects.
Yeah, so there's a couple of big ones that we're looking at, and we're looking to call the public improvement hearing for those. One of those being West Point Douglas, which we know is in pretty bad shape. And then the other one is 80th Street from Jamaica to Keats. And I've asked our Public Works Director, Ryan, to kind of clarify how we do some of the assessments on those roads where you don't have a lot of residential or a lot of ownership in some ways on those roads, so.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and Council. So I'll talk a little bit about our assessment policy real briefly. And, 2 different types of roadways here that we're reconstructing. One, you've got West Point Douglas Road, largely commercial. There is 1 residential property there. And with that, we assess 100% of the project costs adjacent to their property, their half of the roadway. So pretty much covered with the commercial on the one side, the opposite of the highway. So that's the assessment amount you see there. The other side is the highway. It's MnDOT. There's no benefit there. So that other half of the cost is something that the city gets to bear. We are doing special benefit appraisals following our pavement management policy. So that will show us what we can support in terms of assessment. What we've typically seen for commercial areas like this is the benefit appraisal is quite often lower than our assessment policy. We'll have that information here in early February, and we'll have it for the public hearing. The other one is 80th Street, which has very little direct access. So we only assess when there's direct access. You only have 5 homes and the 1 church. And we assess 45% of the adjacent roadway costs for homes. And we look at a local road situation. We don't assess them more because it's 80th Street with multiple lanes. And then you have the church property, which gets a 75% assessment of the adjacent roadway. Something our policy follows. Instead of the 100% for commercial religious institutions is 75%. Once again, we're doing benefit appraisals that will show what we can support for that. Will likely be lower than what is in the document before you tonight. We'll have that at the public hearing. And in that case, there's very low assessments for 80th Street, so we're really relying on our municipal state aid roadway funding to pay for that project. It's a very expensive project. We're having to do some advancement, which is a process that the state allows to advance some funds to help pay for this larger project, which we're working through right now. So, any questions? Thank you.
All right.
Thanks, Brian.
Sounds good. So those were the only items that were pulled just for conversation or acknowledgement.
Move consent.
We have a motion by
Second.
Councilmember Thiede to approve consent, seconded by Councilmember Olson. Any further discussions? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. 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 Opposed? Motion carries. 8 is approved disbursements. 8A is to pay the bills.
Motion to pay the bills.
We have a motion by Councilmember Dennis.
Second.
Second by Councilmember Mills. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Number 9 is a public hearing, which we do have this evening, and it is a business subsidy policy amendment. And our EDA Director, Christine Costello, will walk us through this one. Welcome.
Good evening. There we go. So tonight before you is the business subsidy policy. Back in June of 2017, the EDA did update the city's business subsidy policy to reflect our current goals and objectives, as well as to ensure that we conform with state statutes. And on the screen is a few of those goals and objectives, like removing blight, encouraging redevelopment, expanding and diversifying our local economy and tax base, facilitate and promote development, increase and diversify jobs and retain those high wages, and the highest and best use for properties. Our current business subsidy policy is still in compliance with state statute. As part of our strategic plan, as you're well aware of, we're going through that process to update that. But we continually want to foster a positive business environment. And we do that through being business friendly, wanting to work with developers to bring quality development. And one way we do that is through this business subsidy or public financing. So we want to provide various opportunities for that financing. So we're looking to add the word loan to that business subsidy policy, to include that with all other forms such as the tax increment financing, tax abatement, bonds, and so forth. Basically, we want to make sure we have all of our tools in our toolbox to our disposal. So we still are looking for, by adding that word loan, to follow the intent of the public financing principles and the desired qualifications. We would still negotiate the length of the loan, the dollar amount, interest, and any additional conditions. And as always, the developer is still not guaranteed that they would get that loan or any other public financing like tax increment financing. The project still needs to be vetted through the EDA and City Council. So we're not looking to change any of that. It'd still come before you for approval. So we brought this before the EDA in December, and they recommended approval with a vote to 6-0. So before you tonight is a public hearing as well as a resolution. And with that, I'll take any questions.
Council, any questions? Councilmember Dennis.
Thank you, Mayor. Hi, Christine.
Good evening.
Just for the benefit of the public, can you please explain what pot of money that loan might come out of so people know and understand?
Sure. Mayor, members of the council, that pot of money that Councilmember Dennis is referencing, we have a EDA fund available to us that the EDA has had over a number of years. That money would come from that pot of money. No other sources of city funds would be used. So that money would be used for a loan, and then through interest and so forth, we'd be repaying that pot. So it would be only for that.
And it's not taxpayer derived.
Correct.
It's donation from
It's a
business.
donation fund.
So that people know and understand that the general citizen is not putting money out here as a bank.
Exactly.
Just so everyone is clear on that, so, thank you.
All right, any other questions by council? Guess not, thank you. So we'll go ahead and open the public hearing. Is there anybody that would like to speak on this topic? Is welcome to do so at this time. Anybody at all? All right, seeing none, I'll go ahead and close the public hearing, and council, there is a motion before us.
Mayor, I'll move to adopt Resolution 2020-008, amending the Cottage Grove Business Subsidy Policy.
All right, I have a motion by Councilmember Mills. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Councilmember Thiede. We'll give him that one. There you go. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. 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 Opposed? Motion carries. There you go. All right, 10 is bid awards. There are none this evening. 11 is the regular agenda. We do have a couple items. The first one is Woodward Ponds zoning amendment and preliminary plat. And our planner, Emily Schmitz, is going to take us through this, I believe. Welcome, Emily.
All right, we're in business. Good evening, Mayor Bailey, council members. The item before you this evening, as mentioned, is an application from Donna Homes for a zoning amendment to amend approximately 28 acres from agricultural preserve to medium density with a PUD, and a preliminary plat for approximately 164 residential lots for a multifamily development. This proposed project is located just north of Military Road and west of Keats Avenue. It is bordered on the north by Ravine Parkway. It takes up about 4 parcels, previously owned, one by the Watershed District, 2 parcels by Mr. and Mrs. Kotner here and here, and then parcel 4 was previously owned by Mr. and Mrs. Kaiser. It is also bordered on its west side by the Knutson Tree Farm, as well as Stony Brook Villas, which is not currently under construction. Before I get into the preliminary plat, I want to make mention that the developer did hold a neighborhood meeting early November. So some of the comments, concerns that were raised at that neighborhood meeting, as well as at the Planning Commission, I'll hopefully try to address throughout the presentation to make note of that. Again, 164 units, 2 outlots. It will be entirely HOA maintained. The developer has indicated that they will provide guest parking, which does align with the zoning code requirements. This area is ultimately guided in our comprehensive plan, the 2030 and the 2040 comprehensive plan, as medium density. The developer is proposing approximately 5.6 units per acre in medium density guided areas. It is a range of 4 to 10 units per acre, so this lies somewhere on the low to mid end of that maximum density, excuse me. I also wanted to make note that these parcels also lie within Neighborhood 1 of the East Ravine Master Plan, which was approved in 2006, and again, guides it as in that high and medium density range. 3 access points are proposed to the development, continuing of Jocelyn Avenue, as well as Joliet Avenue from the East Ridge Woods development to the south, as well as on the north side from Ravine Parkway. There's Joliet as well. I will also make mention that Jocelyn Avenue will potentially continue to extend as development continues, as well as 65th Street extend through that Stony Brook Villas development or the Bloomquist parcel. I'll make note that there is 1 private street proposed, Johansson Avenue, which is right down the center of the development that will be maintained by the HOA. Address range signs will also be required to be posted. I just want to make note of that. Public safety emergency responders will be able to navigate the neighborhood as efficiently as possible. Multiple comments and concerns have been raised about the access to the development and the continuing of Jocelyn and Joliet Avenues. I wanted to make mention that this has been planned for some time, since that East Ridge Woods development was approved in 2014. Both of those streets were stubbed with the intent that they would be extended at such time development continued. They are currently, one is a temporary cul-de-sac and one is a temporary dead end at this time. I'll also make note in our future roadway in our 2040 and 2030 comprehensive plan that Joliet is indicated as a major collector, which means that it's typically a 36-foot wide street and allows for, excuse me, a more efficient flow of traffic through those areas. I'll make note also that construction traffic will not be permitted on Joliet Avenue and will be required to come through Ravine Parkway on the north side or Military until such time it is removed. Again, at East Ridge Woods, those 2 future road extensions, barricades, and signage was required to be installed during that East Ridge Woods development construction, so it is posted as future road extension. Sidewalks required on one side of each street, and as I previously just mentioned, Military Road currently exists just, I'm going to say, south of Joliet, still to Keats Avenue. The historic Military Trail corridor has already been installed from Ravine Parkway down to Joliet Avenue. As a part of this project, the rest of Military Road will be removed and a trail installed to continue and maintain that connection. Sidewalks, again, will be installed as development continues to continue those connections throughout the communities and neighborhoods. Other concerns were raised about the fact that there was no park proposed as a part of this development. I'll make note that as part of our long-range planning, a park was not proposed in this particular area, although Glacial Valley Park is proposed just on the north side of this development, on the other side of Ravine Parkway, a large park, lots of amenities, even includes some parking. So there will be access for this development as well as other developments in the area to this park. Easy pedestrian access through there. The developer, because they are not proposing a park within the development, will be required to pay the required park dedication fees. There are 2 storm basins proposed. The one I wanted to note the most was this one along Ravine Parkway, creating a great buffer between the parkway and the proposed development, and then a smaller one in the southeast corner. The utilities will be required to be extended across property lines as a part of development. This just helps for future development. Instead of having to tear up a street that's already been constructed, those utilities are already stubbed across those property lines, making things a little bit more efficient. The developer has proposed a quite intensive landscape plan. They are removing just over the 35% required trees, so they will be required to mitigate some of those trees as well as the landscape requirements. They are maintaining quite a large buffer of trees that exist. There are some mature pine trees and things of that nature to maintain that buffer between the existing development on the south and the new development. They're also proposing again to add quite a large number of trees to their development. I'll make note that we will review this with our forester to ensure that the trees are placed and the number of trees that are placed are manageable and maintainable long-term. So MI Homes is the proposed builder for this development. They are proposing a triplex and a fourplex unit. This will be located on that north side just south of the Ravine Parkway. I'll make note, it's my understanding this particular product is not available yet in Minnesota, so we would be ultimately the first community to have it. I wanted to make mention that it is in fact a single family feel with the covered porches and the different roof lines. The square feet range from 1,700 to about 2,100 square feet, 2,200 square feet, with a price range of $345,000 to $385,000. And then I wanted to include a rear elevation as well, indicating that some of these models do have a basement level. Again, along the Ravine Parkway, hopefully maintaining that single-family feel throughout. And then the row townhomes, which will be kind of in that southeasterly corner of the development. Again, they'll have similar materials and colors as the tri and fourplex products, variety of peaks. They are proposed at 1,700 to 2,100 square feet in size and range from $280,000 to $313,000. So with that, I know that the developer is available to answer any questions as well as staff.
Okay, first of all, for staff, does council have any questions for staff? Councilmember Dennis, and then you. You first. Sorry.
You can go first.
Go ahead. Yeah, go ahead, Dave.
It's okay. So I was at the planning commission meeting for this, and I thought that I had heard about stop signs, actually a four-way stop, which I thought was a fantastic idea at 66th and Joliet, but now I look in the packet and it appears that it's only a two-way.
Within the East Ridge Woods development, that will
Correct.
now be a four-way at
It will
60th
be.
and Joliet. Yep, now that Joliet will be that through street, they'll be stopping. So it's a two-way, not a four-way.
No, I was just to say, I thought I'd heard that it was gonna be a four-way, which will then slow people down on Joliet because that's a fairly straight shot. There's a park there. People are gonna be blazing through there.
Now you got Ryan all excited.
That's good, that's fine. You know, I mean, I wouldn't, you know, I'd want a way to slow people down. I know it's a collector and it's supposed to have traffic flow and everything, but I think it's a bad idea not to have a four-way there.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Councilmember Thiede. So when we look at four-way stops, that's a controlled intersection. So MnDOT is very restrictive on where those go and how the city places those. It has to meet certain traffic counts on each direction and meet certain criteria on like vehicles per hour. This type of intersection would not meet that or be very close to that. So the city would not actually, it wouldn't be following our policy to place an all-way stop there. Side stops is a way of saying, okay, there's four legs of this intersection, who has the right of way? But all-way stops are very restricted to very high traffic intersections. The other part of that is there's a lot of guidance and a lot of research that's been done on stop signs and unnecessary stop signs. So while it does slow traffic at that intersection, people who want to speed, people who will speed, it frustrates them. They're stopping in a situation they don't need to. There's actually been pretty good data showing that speed in other sections of the roadway ends up being quite a bit higher when you have those unnecessary stop signs. So I know that's been something we have done, and there's been discussion on, you know, can we add stop signs for safety? But it does have some negative impacts, and the city is pretty restricted on how we can place those. But there is other.
So is it a city restriction or is it a state?
State restriction. Yep, it's a state
DOT.
restriction.
And so, is there anything that says we couldn't put stop signs on Joliet and not on 61st?
That certainly is something that could be done per the state policy. It wouldn't follow ours because our policy does state that we stop the minor side of the street just because there is so much more traffic. And you're still, unfortunately, you'll get back to that situation where drivers who will speed and choose to speed result in typically higher speeds away from that intersection. You know, it doesn't take long for someone to, you hear that, I hear reference from residents, they hit the gas and they take off from the stop sign. It doesn't take long to get back up to a speed if they were traveling faster than the approved 30-mile-an-hour speed limit. There's certainly other ways that we can do this. This type of roadway, it does have some curve to it. You know, it is typical to other collectors in town, your hillside trails, your Indian boulevards. So it's nothing unusual for Cottage Grove. We do have houses on this road, so we have some cars parking, things like that. So that helps kind of make the road feel a little more constricted and also slow traffic down versus a roadway that has no home frontage, right? And you have no cars parked. That makes it feel very wide open. So that's something that we see as a way to slow traffic down. Also, if there does become a real issue, it's certainly something we work with our public safety department at as well. You know, we can do radar feedback signs, things like that.
So like Hillside, so forth, is a collector.
Correct, yep.
And I think by, not Armstrong, Hillside goes by the elementary there.
Yep.
But
Elementary?
I guess it is Hillside.
It is, yeah.
There you go. So, and I think it's a block away from that, or is it right on there? But I think there's a four-way stop on that, and that's a collector.
Yep, and that is correct, Councilmember Thiede. One thing that goes into always stops is pedestrian counts as well. When you're close to a school, generally there's a lot higher pedestrian counts, and also state guidelines and rules used to be different, where you would see more always stops. And actually typically, in that one, you probably wouldn't see changing because it is close to a school. That is part of the guidance when you have other considerations. One is proximity to a school, but there's some neighborhoods where we have just completely unnecessary stop signs, where in pavement management, we actually do a full review with current policies and practices, and we actually remove stop signs. But that is a good example where there is one, but that has a lot to do with the school as well.
And what will be the speed limit on that, on Joliet?
It'd be 30 miles an hour. Yep.
Because I think that's something else we need to talk about, because I know even in Hidden Valley, you know, people kind of use the circle there as a racetrack, and there's not too many places that they have to stop, and sometimes even there, I try to yell at people to slow down, but you know, so I think we need to take a look at that and really be serious about doing something before everything goes in, and then we say, oh, geez, we got a problem. Now let's see, what can we do to solve it?
Nope, I certainly agree. Safety is number one, and we can work with our public safety department as well, if needed, so.
Thank you.
Okay. Councilmember Dennis, now.
Thank you, Mayor. So I was at the meeting as well as council liaison to the Planning Commission, and the flavor of the room that night really called into question the big issue of the speed along that road. And so while we can't do something here so much with the stop sign, what we can do is we can work with public safety. And I would support that we do things like putting our speed trailer out there. And I think with the speed trailer, we can collect we cannot collect the speeds anymore. Please come up, Gwen. Is that a change that happened?
No, it's not. Thank you.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor and council members, my name is Gwen Martin. I'm Deputy Director of Public Safety. And our speed trailer does not have the software to collect data. We don't have that capabilities. Right now, we are working with the Public Safety Board for traffic signs. The sign on 90th Street by Woodridge Park as you come down the hill, and one on Hadley by Pine Hill Elementary. Those two do collect data, and so we're looking at either purchasing another one of those signs or a different vendor to have the ability to collect data and provide it in graph forms. And it would be a temporary sign. So when we get speeding complaints, these signs are battery operated and can be placed for up to about 2 weeks and collect some data that way. And they would be bolted onto an existing speed limit sign. That's how we can do that. Okay. The speed trailer can certainly be used to alert motorists what their speeds are, and we can also scroll messages on there. Slow down, be aware, you know. So that's the function of the speed trailer.
Okay, thank you. So I do believe that would be very helpful, and I know we do employ that on other roadways here in town. But also, you know, from my perspective, I'd like to see us do some actual enforcement with both marked and unmarked units, random periodically, just to ensure, and really with more of an eye toward educating people. Mm-hmm. I know that they do have a Facebook page for that neighborhood, and they've kind of been working back and forth within the different neighbor groups to try to help bring that to the attention. But I think, you know, listening to many of the people, and I have the benefit of knowing many of those constituents, I believe in good faith that there's an issue happening there, and I would like to see us do something with that.
We'll definitely work with them.
Okay. A couple, well, maybe a comment a little bit on that, and then 2 questions for staff. One on the comment, the one, and I totally concur with you that we can look at, you know, the trailers and increased enforcement. I do want to say, though, that in the neighborhoods that we've done that, it ends up being the neighborhood people that are getting caught going fast. So it isn't the neighbors coming through those areas, it's them.
That's be careful what you ask for.
It is. You got to be careful what you ask for, because you might be.
That did actually happen, folks.
It has.
Yeah.
So we just want to, that's why I caution everybody just to say, okay, just remember what we're asking for.
That's why I said more of an educational.
Yes,
yeah.
there you go, there you go. 2 questions for staff. One is, it's more of a general one on Stony Brook Villas. is, do we know kind of what's going on with Stony Brook Villas at this time, or no? I don't know who might have that info. Because I know it's been approved about a year ago, maybe.
You might just want to stay up there for a while.
I can certainly do that. Thank you, Mayor, members of the council. So that applicant that was approved, Market Homes, they're no longer proceeding with the Stony Brook Villas. It was, we had approved the final plat, just finishing up plans. It was really on their end, I believe, from a financing and just how they support their project is really what it came down to. So unfortunately, they aren't moving ahead, but I do know there are other developers who are actively looking at that piece of property. Guided medium density and, a great opportunity, and now you kind of see it filling in around it. So it is being actively looked at.
All right, perfect. And then I don't know if this is going to be for you or maybe for Zach, and this is more of a question, maybe a comment. So I notice now we're going to take that that next section of Military Road out, we're going to create the trail access. I'm thinking, all right, so if we've got the trail access, which is currently, or the area that's currently in, and then this new area that's going to be put in, where's it going to? And the reason I'm asking that question is I don't believe that there is a trail along 19. So are we going to be dumping military out on a County Road 19?
Actually, Mr. Mayor, members of the council, the plan that we did put in place with the Ravine Parkway but never got to implement it is to extend the trail down the west side of 19 and then connect into the roundabout there at 70th Street.
Perfect, so the plan is to do that?
Yep, so that will take place, so we'll have a nice connection and loop down that direction.
Okay, and thank you, because that was my one question on that. And then the other one, and maybe this is more for Zach for the future, is I know we've talked a lot about what military, the historic military road is going to look like, and it would be good, I think, to have an update kind of in the future here of what are the things that we're going to do on the old military road that's going to highlight the significance of the historic nature of that road, and whether it's, markers, whether it's artwork, I say artwork like statues or something, I don't know. I'd just be curious as to kind of what is our plan, because we got this great Ravine Parkway we put in, and our goal has always been to continue with the historic nature of military road. I just want to make sure that and maybe historic preservation too, same thing.
Yeah, so I can speak to that a little bit, because it has been a discussion for the last couple of years in the historic preservation. They've been working on, putting together different information.
Yeah, I just love to see it. Now that it looks like we're starting to fill that area in, it would be nice to kind of see what are the homeowners in that area going to see. So, okay, that was my questions. Any other questions for staff at this point? Is the developer here? Did you want to come up? I have one question for you. And if you just want to officially state your name and address for the record, that would be awesome.
Mayor Bailey, council members, I am the applicant, Paul Dunne, 9655 63rd in Maple Grove. And I have my engineer with, Paul Cherney, who's worked with me before in the city of Cottage Grove, to answer any engineering questions you might have. I also have a representative from M&I Homes for questions on the architecture and things like that.
Okay. Well, first of all, I want to say welcome. But it's, one of the challenges or the things that we as a council have been working on is a more diverse housing stock. So I think your development proposal with all these different options in there is almost precisely what we're looking for all these different options. My question for you, though, and it's just a general question, is you are entering or going to be bringing in two new types of homes that have not been accustomed to Minnesota, I guess, which in your information here was based out of Chicago, which is these triplexes and fourplexes. Have you done some studies or anything that kind of says, hey, this is something that, it's like villas. No one knew what villas were for the longest time. Now everybody wanted a villa. So are we switching? And I have zero issue with us being the first community to try this out. But do you have like studies of who buys these homes? I don't know who wants it. Or who do you think's going to buy these homes? Maybe not who is going to buy them.
You say these are new? I think I see.
Lauren Gross with MI Homes. So new product here, and we're kind of designing it more along the lines of a villa. A lot of more main floor masters available, kind of diversity within each of the complex or in each unit. So I mean, they'll have the option to have the main floor master or an upstairs master. So there's options to kind of make it what you want. I guess plug and play more inside.
Okay. All
So
right.
it's really going under development still. So.
Perfect. But it's doing well, it sounds like, in Chicago? They've been
Oh, yes,
popular there?
definitely. Yep, this product didn't, and this one feels more like a single-family home when you're in it. You're not so much of like, the row product is, once you're inside, you don't notice that you have neighbors right next to you either, but I mean, this definitely, from the outside, in the inside, feels more like a single-family home.
Okay, and are you, I don't know which of the two, so if the approval process goes through tonight, what's your kind of plan? Are you, because you've got all different types of products that you're going to be bringing into this area, are you going to build a couple of each? Is that the idea?
So the plan is to build 2 models, one model being, I think it's a 4-plex, so it should be on the corner as you come off of Ravine.
Okay.
And then another row home, which will actually be a product that we already have here in the cities, which is, I mean, the closest one, I guess, would be the North St. Paul product, and that would be a 4-plex there. As we develop the other type of row product, which would be the front load with the garage. So that one's
Okay.
still in the works too. There's actually 2 different types of row products, one with garage on the back, one with garage on the front, so.
And we'll bring everything in through Ravine Parkway.
Correct.
That's where our construction entrance will be. So we won't come through the existing homes which are adjacent to it.
Yeah,
which
we
is
kind of
important.
figured that. I did watch that at the planning commission meeting,
Yeah.
that there was
And
some
we're gonna
concern
phase
about
it.
that. We knew that wasn't gonna happen, so.
I'll grade it in one phase, and then I'll put the sewer and water and the streets in probably 2 to 3 phases.
So on these homes, and again, I know they're new to Minnesota that you're talking about, is there like is this more of a starter home with like a family with kids, or do you see this like almost like an empty nester, or what do you?
I'd say in this area, it's probably gonna attract both types.
Okay. All right.
Especially with the location and close proximity to the park coming and.
Yes, yeah.
With I mean, you could live next to your in-laws potentially and be right next to each other, or.
Easy daycare, I guess.
Yeah.
Okay. Council, any questions for the applicant or the developer? Unless you have anything else you want to share?
No, I'm excited about it. I mean, I think M&I is gonna do a good job. If I was to tell you the truth, and I've told John Rask, who's the Vice President of Development, if I was a little younger, I would probably have built the product, because I've built a lot of that multifamily over the decades, since the 80s. But I'm gonna be getting to my upper 60s now, and I build single families in Cottage Grove now, and I'm happy doing that. And I think they have a great product. And a friend of mine who sold to you guys, I knew him at the Builders Association. He was a great guy, and I think they'll do a wonderful job.
Good. Well, we're looking forward to it. That's why I asked the questioning, because it's something that we've been really trying to do in our community, is diversify our housing stock so we can attract a variety of people and a variety of options. So this is definitely bringing that to the table. So thank you. All right. Sounds good. Council, I know it's not open or a public hearing, or is there anybody in the audience that wants to speak on this particular item? I think everybody did speak at the Planning Commission, but just to ask. All right. So council, we have, I believe, 2 motions before us. Who wants to take them?
Mayor, I'll move that we adopt ordinance number 1018, approving the zoning amendment to change the zoning of the 28.84 acres from AG1 agricultural preservation to R5 medium-density residential with a planned unit development.
All right, so I have a motion by Councilmember Olson.
Second.
Second by Councilmember Thiede. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. And then number 2?
Mayor, I'll make the motion to adopt Resolution 2020-007, approving the preliminary plat for a residential subdivision to be called Woodward Ponds, which will consist of 164 residential lots for multifamily units.
All right, so I have a motion by Councilmember Mills.
Second.
Second by Councilmember Dennis. Any further discussion on this one? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. There you go. Good luck. We look forward to seeing it. All right, the next item on our, under our agenda this evening is B, which is the liquor compliance check violations, which deals with underage sales. Joe Fischbach, I believe you're taking us through this one. Are we doing each one kind of separately?
I'll read the memo and then we'll take them individually. Thank you, Mayor. On November 22nd, 2019, the Cottage Grove Public Safety Department conducted liquor compliance checks of Cottage Grove businesses holding liquor licenses by using an underage buyer. The following businesses failed these compliance checks: TJJL Corporation, doing business as Carboni's Kitchen and Pub. This is the business's second violation in a 24-month period. The previous violation occurred on November 30th of 2017 and was also the second violation in a 24-month period for which the licensee paid a $1,000 fine and served a 3-day suspension. The second one was Super Value Incorporated, doing business as Cub Foods. This is their first violation in a 24-month period. The third, Muddy Cow CG LLC, doing business as Muddy Cow. This is the business's first violation in a 24-month period. And Walmart Incorporated, doing business as Walmart Store number 2448, and this is their first violation in a 24-month period. Letters were mailed to these four licensees on December 11th, letting them know that the hearings will be held tonight, and they could respond to the allegations of whether or not they sold to an underage buyer. They were informed that if they admitted to the violation or failed to attend, staff would request council to impose the scheduled fine as outlined in the city fee table. And in the event that they denied the allegation, staff would request a contested case hearing be scheduled before an administrative law judge. The staff recommendation is to allow business representatives an opportunity to respond to the city council regarding these violations on November 22nd, 2019. So the first one would be TJJL Corporation, doing business as Carboni's Kitchen and Pub. If the representative admits to the violation or fails to attend, the staff would recommend imposing the scheduled penalty for a second violation in a 24-month period, including a $1,000 fine and a 3-day suspension. According to the city code, the 3-day suspension is recommended by the city council, but they could defer that to the public safety director if they chose to. And if the representative denies the violation, a contested case hearing would be scheduled before an administrative law judge. I don't know if the licensee from Carboni's is here.
Is there anybody here? Do you want to come up to the podium there? And again, just state your name and address for the record, though I know who you are.
Good evening, council members. My name is Jonah Weingarten, and I actually live on Van Buren Avenue in St. Paul, although I spend a lot of time here in Cottage Grove, as you could probably imagine. I'm here representing my restaurant with pride on behalf of the owners, Tim and Janelle Erickson. I've worked there for over 8 years and consider it to be my home. And Janelle is not able to be here today, but I have a message from her. I offer apologies that we could not be here in person. We are on an annual trip with my parents and siblings that keep us away. We trust that Jonah and Kurt, who is there, the fellow bartender, will convey our deepest apologies for our recent liquor violation. At the time the violation sting occurred, our bartender did ask for identification and verified the year, but due to how incredibly busy it was on that Friday night, he was overwhelmed and miscalculated the month. Although there is no excuse for his mistake, one he will never make again, what we do want to emphasize is that Carboni's Kitchen and Pub does not serve minors. Any one of you can come into our restaurant at any given time on any day of the week, and you will not find underage drinking. As a matter of fact, many of you have been in our establishment and could attest to this truth. Unfortunately, this does not make it okay to fail a sting, and for that we do apologize. All of our staff, including the gentleman who failed, have been through the alcohol compliance training course offered through the county. However, even the best trained individuals can make mistakes, to which we are confident you can understand. We value the opportunity to serve this community and respect the laws of the state of Minnesota. And as previously stated, we want to emphasize and assure you all that we do not and will not serve minors at our establishment. Thank you for your time, Janelle and Tim Erickson.
Okay. Council, do you have any questions for him? Councilmember Brolson?
Thank you very much, Mayor, fellow council members and staff. I have a couple of questions that I think staff might be able to help us with, although Joe was able to clarify a little bit. Being that, you know, this is a new circumstance for me because I've only been sitting up here for about a month and a half now. I'm curious, the individual who failed this sting, what was their tenure? How long have they been with you?
He's been with us for, oh geez, maybe about a year or so, give or take.
Okay, so would you consider the individual experienced or new? Help me understand.
Experienced, but newer at our establishment.
Okay. This is a second violation in a 24-month period of time. Same individual, different individual? It sounds like it would
different
have to be a
individual.
different person based
Correct,
on tenure.
yeah.
Okay, so the individual who failed 24 months ago, not the current failure, but the previous failure, is that person still there?
Yes.
Okay. And what sort of training do your people get when it comes to ensuring that they are well-versed in, you know, the law and how best to ensure that you don't suffer these sorts of violations with regular?
Well, for starters, we make it mandatory for all our employees to attend the alcohol training courses that are available. I believe that's annual.
Now, as I read through the rest of the memo here, one of the things that I'll note is that it says that in lieu of suspension for folks who have violated one time, at the council's discretion, the participation of an employee or employees in an educational program approved by the public safety director is an option. Is that program for staff the county program to which Jonah referred? Is that the program that the public safety director typically would approve?
It's similar. I don't know if it's exactly the same. I believe that the Minnesota Beverage Association has a training program, and it's either that program or modeled after that program.
So when this establishment violated for the second time in a 24-month period of time, previous to this situation, was there any sort of training program that the public safety director approved at that time in addition to what sounded like a fine and a 3-day license suspension? In other words, did we implement any additional training at that time?
Gwen, do you want to answer that one?
Thank you, Mayor and council members. I cannot speak directly to that instance, but it is the, when it's the first violation, that's when the public safety director provides that additional training. When it's the second violation, that's not an option. That's my understanding, that that's been the standing practice. So-
Okay.
So in 2017, when it was their second violation, no, they would not, I cannot say for sure, but typically they would not have received that training from the public safety director at that time.
Okay, so then I need further clarity because, Joe, what I thought I heard you say when you brought this specific business up in the reading of the memo was the council was advised by staff to implement the fine and the 3-day suspension or defer to the public safety director. Did you say that, or did I misunderstand?
Defer to the public safety director on the 3-day suspension. You guys can pick it if you want to, or you can ask Pete to work with the business to pick a 3-day.
I see. So what you're saying is they get to pick the dates versus pick a different penalty.
Well, you get to pick the dates, or you can defer. They don't get to pick. The business does not get to pick.
Okay, understood. Thank you. Okay, so again, just to be clear, first violation that they had, which would have been 15, 16 range, they got some additional training?
Yep.
And then after that, it's basically penalty, 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 but no additional training beyond what they might themselves seek out.
That is correct.
Okay.
And they certainly can ask the city of Cottage Grove with assistance in that, but it's not clearly defined as it is with a first violation.
Sure, understood. Now, the point in me asking all these questions is, you know, for me personally, as somebody who actually was responsible when I was a manager of support services for a very large convenience store chain that's based here in Minnesota, and was responsible for doing these stings. And I actually had underage shoppers that I sent into my stores to try to buy alcohol and tobacco and all that kind of stuff. The primary purpose of us doing that to ourselves was to ensure that we were properly training our employees. And so as a business, naturally, my thought is that's something that you desire, is you desire having properly trained employees so that you don't, first of all, damage your reputation as a business by having these sorts of situations occur, but secondly, have to sit through a whole council meeting and come stand up here and, you know, listen to me talk and all the rest of it. So, you know, without having worked through all of these previous circumstances with you, one of the things I would think might be fair is not only do we slap your hand, but maybe we provide you some additional support relative to some training. And I don't know if there's any room in the ordinance for training in lieu of, you know, maybe you shorten the penalty from 3 days to 1 day, and you know, make everybody come in on a Saturday morning early and do some training. I don't know if we can do things like that, but certainly seems to me as though some additional training beyond what you're already doing, because you've been penalized now, you know, 3 different times, so that might not be enough, that could be warranted.
Okay. Councilmember Thiede?
And if I could add to that, and obviously training is always good, but what I hear you saying is that, you know, it's not that the individual didn't have the knowledge of, you know, what date was correct. It's just like, and I heard you say month, so it was like, you know, you get going, you know, everybody's waiting for drinks and everything, and they're checking IDs, and it's like they just didn't calculate it right.
Correct.
So my first thought, being an industrial engineer and looking at efficiency of systems, I would think maybe there's some ways that you could actually improve your process so that, you know, that person doesn't have to, I know they make products and so forth that you could read the mag strips and so forth. That could get a little lengthy in terms of time, you know. Yeah, maybe there's some other things that you might be able to do that has the current, you know, cutoff date or something like that, so that they have some reference or something like that. I don't know, but, you know, and I don't know if that would come under training or come under changing your process on how you do it, but just comment.
Okay. I have a question for staff, if you would. So after this fine and or suspension and such is done, what is the next one? If they were to fail again, what happens next?
So that would be a 7 consecutive day penalty and also a civil fine. So a straight 7-day suspension of their liquor license.
Okay. The reason I'm asking is I know there would be a point, and that's what I'm trying to remember, where they could literally lose their liquor license. And I guess that my concern, and that's why I'm glad you're here, but have we had, I don't know if it's for you or for Gwen, wherever she's at there, have we ever had anybody fail 3 times in a row?
I don't believe
I don't think we
so,
ever
no,
have.
No.
All right, well, and I don't want this to be the one, I guess is what I'm,
Nor do I.
I don't, I know, but what I want you to do is, I know you're representing the owners, and I know who the owners are, but I think it's extremely important, and if they watch this afterwards, they can, that there is some serious jeopardy if we get to that point, because no other business in Cottage Grove has made it to 3. And we don't want you to make it to 3, and we don't like, I mean, we're trying to invite businesses to town, we don't want to close businesses down, but other than the risk to yourself and your business, should an underage person get served, go out and kill somebody in a car accident, your business is gone then. So we need to make sure that the processes are being followed. And I do know that there is some technology out there that can be utilized where you take away the calculation in your head. I get it. I could see why a bartender who's crazy busy is shuffling things around. So when you talk about efficiencies, there's probably there is some technology out there. I do know that, I'm not sure who else is in the audience here, but I think even one of these other, that I'm aware of, but one of the other violators, if you will, that's here tonight, actually has one of those, and the individual just skipped by it. Yes.
Your Honor, members of the council, first of all, I'd like to just ask that you proceed with caution down a path of deviating from your policy, because you have a policy for a reason and you've adopted specific sanctions for specific circumstances. So if you choose to deviate from that, I would like to hear some findings of fact as to why, because you're setting a precedent for doing that.
And that's fine.
Yep.
And I get that. My only reason I'm bringing it up is because I'm hearing about training, and I agree.
Yep.
But these individuals were trained. They went through the training and they still didn't do it. So I'm not requiring it as part of this, but I'm just suggesting that if you're having struggles with this process, that you might want to look at some other ways to get the process so it doesn't happen again. I'm just concerned that if we do get to a 3rd violation, it's really going to put you guys in a difficult position, let alone all of us up here, because it's not going to be pretty. And I don't know if anybody else here wants to comment on anything. Councilmember Dennis?
Sure, thank you, Mayor. Well, first off, I agree with your sentiments that we don't embrace people having failures, we embrace success. And what I believe is that the heart here is that our community and our public safety team wants to see people be successful in passing these things. And in full transparency, I have a liquor license too. And we've been very fortunate and diligent. For 17 years, our record is 97-0 for checks. 6 times a year, we have to go through that. And it's not something that any business really likes, but it's the rules of engagement. A license is a privilege, it's not a right or guarantee, and if we do the right things, we maintain the value and benefit of that privilege. So one thing I would like to just share, and I do this kindly and respectfully for any of the members here tonight, the MLBA, Minnesota Licensed Beverage Association, does put on and have available to license holders a plethora of different training options. There's one even involving safe serve, so that you make sure you're not over-serving guests, so that people are being protected and not having to, have bad things happen to themselves or others when they leave the establishment. So there's those opportunities. The other thing is Washington County provides training opportunities too. And I will say hi to our county commissioner who's in the back room of the room tonight. But what is available, and it tends to come out toward the beginning of the year, or I guess late in the 4th quarter, we get a calendar. And I don't know if you've seen those, but you can post those on the wall that give honor before this date, that type of thing. Yep. There's usually a letter that comes along with that. And there's an opportunity and offer for training. So what I would kindly suggest is that maybe you share that with Tim and Janelle and maybe encourage them on behalf of your team to take the county up on that, to get some assistance, because everybody here wants to be a responsible business owner, and we want to see everybody do well. And so those are the things that I just offer up as suggestions to help.
Okay. Any other comments? So The recommendation from staff is obviously before us, where it talks about a $1,000 fine and a 3-day suspension. The ordinance is specific to that. The only discretion we have is, do we want to set dates here at the council table? Do we prefer to do the 3-day suspension, refer that to Director of Public Safety Pete Kerner?
I would suggest, Mayor, if I could,
Yes.
that we allow public safety to work on that. I think that would be better handled through the staff. That way, you know, as council, I mean, we're representatives of people, that we're not involved in making that particular decision.
Okay, so then I guess what I'll need is a motion.
Is that a motion? Or what?
Is that a motion?
I can make motion.
You want to make a
I thought
motion
we were
of
just
it?
having discussion, but if people are comfortable, maybe Mr. Olson wants to.
Did you
hear
have
from
something
first.
else you want to?
I did.
Yeah, go ahead. We can just do that before we do a motion.
What I heard you say, and I want to make sure I'm clear about what you said, is our only discretion is to either defer to the public safety director or choose the dates ourselves. Is
Yes.
that indeed the case? That's our
Yes.
only discretion. We don't
That
have
is.
the ability to deviate from the penalty.
That is correct, and that's what I think.
But that's not
Corey
what I
was-
heard, that's not what I heard the attorney say. What I heard the attorney say is she would caution us
Yes.
to not deviate from this, which would lead me to believe that we could if we chose to, but you would caution us not to, and then you said you would like to hear findings of fact because it would be setting a precedent. So is it fair to say then that we've never deviated from this policy ever? It's not fair to
Not
say
that I
that?
ever
Or,
remember.
No, we have not.
Okay.
Deviated from, it's in the, actually, it's not a policy, it's in the city code.
okay, so we've never deviated from it in any circumstance where somebody has had a failure?
Not that I'm aware of since 2005.
Okay, good enough.
Okay. Did you want to make a motion?
Okay, I certainly can. I make motion, excuse me, that we follow the recommendation of our city code to enforce measures that cover the listed violations, and that we allow our public safety team to set the 3 days at their discretion and turn that over to their capable hands.
Okay, so you're recommending the $1,000 fine and the 3-day suspension?
As stated in the staff report.
Okay, so I have a motion by Councilmember Dennis. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Councilmember Thiede. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
Do I just refer, I'm going to refer back to you.
The second one is Super Value Incorporated doing business as Cub Foods. If the representative admits to the violation or fails to attend, the recommendation would be to impose the scheduled penalty for the first violation in a 24-month period of a $500 fine and a 1-day suspension, or at the city council discretion, in lieu of this suspension, the participation of employees in an educational program approved by the public safety director. If the representative denies the violation, we would schedule a contested case hearing before an administrative law judge.
Okay. And I'm assuming you're here to represent?
Yes.
Okay, do you want to state your name and address for the record, please?
Absolutely. My name is Justin Schmid. My address is 2628 Sumac Ridge in White Bear Lake. I'm the store director, or interim store director for Cub Foods Cottage Grove.
Okay.
First off, I'd like to apologize, obviously, for failing the sting. Neither the associate nor the store director are currently with our company. Both left on voluntary terms. We do also have measures in place to make sure this doesn't happen again. We do actually ask for the birth date in our POS systems, so this associate did either do a manual override or actually enter in their own personal date. I actually make sure my associates enter in the date even for myself and my associates, so that's hopefully done and over with. Additionally, we did actually go over training with Tobacco 21 as well to make sure this isn't going to happen again.
Okay. I believe all of our tobacco compliances came back good this year, right? If I remember, which is great to hear, so that's obviously working in your case.
Yep.
Council, do you have any questions for him at this point? I guess one of the options that is before the council at this point is in lieu of the one-day suspension, we can request that the employees be part of an education program approved by our public safety director. Council has that discretion on that. My one question for you on that is that something that you're doing currently?
Yeah, so we currently have CBLs, computer-based learning modules. Every single associate that has access to a cash register has to do that yearly.
Okay.
Additionally, we did that for everyone after failed sting, and again, when the tobacco law changed here. So we've actually done it twice in the last month.
Okay. Yeah, that's right. That just changed on the 1st. That's true.
Yep.
So, all right. Council, any questions for him? All right, so now we have an option before you, if you would. Council can decide what they'd like to do. You can either, well, the penalty of $500 is the penalty. And our discretion is if you want to do a one-day suspension, or do you want to have them go through education programming?
Mayor, I'll make a motion
Okay.
for Cub Foods to have the fine and then in lieu of the day suspension, do the training. Because I think training's an important piece and that hopefully is helpful. I know you've gone through a lot already, but I know having one-day suspension is not probably a pleasant thing for a business.
Okay. All right, so I have a motion being made by Councilmember Mills. Do I have a second? Anybody want to second it?
I'll second
You want to second it? Okay, we have a second by Councilmember Thiede. Any further discussion? Yeah, Councilmember Dennis.
Just a quick question, sir. How many individuals would go through your training?
Anyone that has access to a cash register. So in my store currently, around 60 individuals.
Okay. So, I mean, I guess the only consideration is that, 60 people is a lot to train. And if they do have in-house measures and things that they have actually upgraded, I mean, is that a consideration we would want to take a look at?
What I would probably state is let's let our public safety director discuss that as the option, because if they've got a program that he believes is sufficient, that Cup Foods is doing, they may have already satisfied it. But the point would be is I see where you're going with it, because it sounds like they've been through some additional trainings already.
Well, they have people working different shifts too.
Yes, but I, on the other side of that, though, is we definitely would want to make sure that if you have 60 people that have access to sell alcohol and tobacco, you'd want them to make sure that they know that, so. Okay, so we have a motion and a second. Any further discussions after that? All right, seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
The third one is Muddy Cow CG LLC doing business as Muddy Cow. If the representative admits to the violation or fails to attend, impose the scheduled penalty for the first violation in a 24-month period of a $500 fine and a one-day suspension, or at the city's council discretion, in lieu of the suspension, the participation of employees in the educational program approved by the public safety director. If the representative denies the violation, schedule a contested case hearing before an administrative law judge.
Okay, do you want to just state your name and address for the record, please?
Alan Sargent, 3318 Ridgestone Way, Woodbury.
Okay. Did you have anything you want to say?
No, not too much. I mean, we had a similar situation to everyone. 20-year bartender, recently with us for just a few months. Same old excuse, just doing two, three things at a time. Went right past it. Never rang it in, never collected any money, just set the alcohol down and moved on to what she was doing. But we have already done the MLBA, safety test, all the stuff. Everyone in there has already complied, signed off on. That bartender has been terminated that night. We have a huge operation. We're at 7 stores currently, adding 2 more this year. And out of all of our locations, we've only had 1 violation going forward. So we take it very seriously, and obviously you can't say it won't happen again, but we do our training, we do everything by the book. So that's kind of where we were at.
Okay. Council, any questions for him at this point? All right, so again, same situation because it was a first-time violation. The fine is the $500, and we either can do the one-day suspension, or in lieu of the suspension, the participants of employees in this company would go through an education program approved by Public Safety Director Pete Kerner.
I would move that we go with the training and defer that to the public safety to oversee.
Okay, all right, so the 500 fine and the training. So we have a motion by Councilmember Thiede. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Councilmember Dennis. Any further discussion? Councilmember Olson.
Thank you. If I remember correctly, the Muddy Cow has only been open for?
Since March.
Since March,
of 19.
okay.
Yep.
Okay, so I know the liquor license was issued on February 20th, 2019, open in March. You do all your training. The way our ordinance reads is, 2 violations in a 24-month period of time equals X, 1 violation in that same period of time equals Y.
Yes, sir.
You haven't even been open a year and you've had a violation. So the law of averages would say if that happened again, you're gonna have a second violation in less than 24 months.
Yes, sir.
What do you do to prevent that?
All you can do is keep educating. I mean, that's all you can do. And it starts from the management, ownership, management, all the way down to the staff. Like I said, we do annually, we do our serve safe and our liquor awareness, all that kind of stuff. You lay it out to them, as much as you can, not daily, but weekly, monthly. We have the signs in place for the dates and all that kind of stuff, and you can't make excuses for them. It's going to happen, unfortunately, but the best we can do is keep educating them and training them.
So something that's interesting to me is you are a bar and restaurant.
Yes, sir.
And the first person who spoke was a bar and restaurant. My suspicion is you're both busy places. So you even said yourself, hey, you know what? She was busy, 20-year bartender, whatever. From a staffing component perspective, if I'm a person and I've got all these customers to serve, because I'm a bar and restaurant and I'm busy, okay? I'm not a liquor store where 2 people are in my store at one time and it's a little easier. I'm not a grocery store where I don't have all the product mix. I'm a bar and restaurant and it's buzzing, it's hopping.
Sure.
How do you make sure that you have the appropriate staffing on hand so that this poor person who's by themselves behind the bar and trying to wait on all these people, and you got people waving money at you, and they've had a couple cocktails, so they're a little excited. How do you make sure that they don't just pass over, don't check, or, hey, I gave it a cursory look, but, I'm busy. How do you make that happen? Because it seems like you're at much greater risk
I would
for
agree.
a potential violation than somebody with a little bit lower volume.
I would agree. They're not coming through one at a time in a line.
Right.
Yes, I understand. Again, it's training. There is no guarantee. And you hope that you explain, teach as best you can, that it gets lodged in their head. Everyone gets ID'd because, one, you have the date, obviously, first and foremost, but on the back there is also restrictions for some people not allowed to have liquor. So they have to check front, they have to check back. It's not just as much as, oh yeah, here's the date. It looks, and look at a picture and go. I mean, there's a lot to it. And they don't have a choice, and that's why she was terminated that night. It states in our handbook, fired immediately, because no matter how busy you are, it's still lazy, and you have to, every single person, 30, 40, 50, 60 years old, has to be ID'd.
So you have a zero tolerance policy?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Is it feasible to have the same thing that the last applicant talked about with, they scan everything through their point of sale? I mean, is that a reasonable thing to do in a bar and restaurant?
Our point of sale, not that I know of, is that's not available. As far as I know, for the system that we use, I haven't seen anything like that. It would be a little tricky, especially on those, buzzing nights, like you said, but it's not something that we would look past, but I don't think that we have that option currently.
Just curious, because it seems like it would be a nice preventive measure.
It would. I mean, it'd be nice if they could just swipe it as they walk through the door and they get a green light and go through, but it doesn't quite work that way, every time.
Good enough, thanks.
Yep.
All right, so we do have a motion and a second. Any other comments? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by motions by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
And the fourth one is Walmart Incorporated doing business as Walmart store number 2448. If the representative admits to the violation or fails to attend, impose the scheduled penalty for the first violation in a 24-month period of a $500 fine and a 1-day suspension, or at the city council's discretion. In lieu of this suspension, the participation of employees in an educational program approved by the public safety director. If the representative denies the violation, schedule a contested case hearing before an administrative law judge.
Okay, and I see you're already up there.
Yes.
So you know the order, so name and address for the record.
Hi, my name is Bonnie Sansfield. My address is 2008 4th Street South, South St. Paul.
Okay. And did you have anything you want to say as regards to Walmart?
I actually was not in the building the night that the incident took place, but the cashier in question was terminated that night. I did get to review video, and we're not denying it at all. From video, the ID that she took had a bubble in it. And instead of going with the bubble and denying the sale, she asked the person for their date of birth. So we are not denying it at all.
Okay. When you say a bubble, what does that mean?
Usually
I
it's a
don't
sign
know.
of a fake ID.
Okay. All right. So it looks like there might be an issue with it, that somebody played with it. Okay.
So we're supposed to deny if there's any form of tamper with identification. So she should have denied the sale.
Okay. All right. And do your employees go through training?
Yes, so they go through annual tobacco and alcohol training if they run a register at all. So that's like 80 to 100 associates in the building that are going through that training. Furthermore, the company has secret shoppers that they send in to check both tobacco and alcohol. And so we had 13 audits in the last, I think, year and a half, and we passed all of them.
Okay. Council, any questions for the? Yes, Councilmember Dennis.
I do have a quick question. I want to go back to your statement where you said, excuse me, that the individual asked the person, are you of proper age, or did the person say that they were under?
So our POS system has a prompt for any alcohol or tobacco and also cold medicine, where it will prompt for an age verification. So for tobacco and alcohol, it says, does the person appear to be under the age of 40? If you answer yes, then it will ask you to enter their date of birth. So when she hit yes, she did the ID check, and I think the bubble was right near the date of birth. And so you could see her hesitate, and then she just asked the person for the date of birth.
Okay, so that person gave their actual date of birth but did not say?
No, they gave a date of birth that would put them over the age of 21. Because our system, if it would have been under 21, our system would have rejected it and said this is an ineligible transaction.
So the decoy said that they were over the age of 21?
Yep, from my understanding, because I wasn't there, they were given a date of birth, they entered it, and the transaction proceeded. Now, I don't have the paperwork, and I wasn't there that night, so I can't 100% say for sure. But watching video, you can see her run her finger over the ID, and then she enters a date of birth. And they said that she asked for the date of birth, and she just went with what was given to her.
And there's no audio?
On our cameras, no.
Okay.
I mean, do you want to comment on?
I do, Your
Because
Honor.
I figured you would.
Yep.
That's why I wanted to pause for a minute on this.
Your Honor,
so.
members of the council, given that there's a fact in dispute, I would suggest that you continue this hearing so that we can verify with the decoy. Obviously, with only 4 failures, it's easy to remember each and every one of them. So it would be easy to ask the decoy, did you give your true date of birth or not? And if we can verify that the decoy did, then it's up to the council to determine which truth is the truth. But I would suggest you continue this hearing so that we can confirm that detail. That's a very important detail.
It is, and that's why we're asking, or Councilmember Dennis is asking the question, because that is not something they do. I mean, if somebody asks them a question.
They're supposed to answer it. So
With
that
the
was
truth.
that was the story that I got when I came back. So it may be very well that something else happened. We're ready and prepared to accept any guilt and then move forward.
So I guess my question then is, am I looking for our staff and for direction? I'm kind of hearing two things. I'm hearing, one, there's a concern. I still would think we'd like to know, but I'm also hearing that they don't necessarily deny.
We're not disputing.
They're not disputing it. So the question is, do we impose, is the recommendation, should we go ahead and impose the process, or should we literally wait?
Your Honor, I would suggest we wait until we
Okay.
confirm the facts.
Perfect. Okay. So what we'll do is we're gonna continue this. So we're not gonna render a motion or whatever tonight on this item, but I will ask council to continue this particular item to our next council meeting, and we'll verify with our, do you want to speak? Yeah, absolutely. I was gonna say, I probably should have called you up there.
I have the report in front of me. I can read it to you. We do have an image scanned of the ID. I don't have it with me, but I can go back and get it, or we can defer to a later time. But I'm happy to read what the report says. It's kind of a short report. And I can go back if you want it, or you defer to another time. So that's completely up to you.
Your Honor, I would rather we have all the information in front of us. so
Okay, then we'll
I would
defer.
suggest we continue.
Okay? So at this point then, from the council, what I'd like to do is look for a motion to just defer or
Just continue.
continue, yeah. So to continue this to our next council meeting.
I would move that we discontinue this case against Walmart to the next council meeting.
Not discontinue, but continue.
Continue
Yep,
it. Did I
continue.
say that?
Yep.
wrong? Okay.
So continue this to the next council meeting. So I have a motion by Councilmember Thiede,
Second.
second by Councilmember Mills. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. So we will then do our verifications, and then, and unfortunately, I guess, or fortunately, depending on how you want to look at it, you will need to be back at the next meeting,
Okay.
Okay.
Do you know when that will be?
February 5th.
5th.
Yep. Okay?
I will be here.
Thank you. All right. All right, council, so that ends the items on that part of the agenda. So now we have moved to number 12, which is council comments and requests, and I'll do my normal and start down with Councilmember Mills.
Thank you, Mayor. I want to bring up first that the photo contest deadline has been extended to January 31st. So if there's anyone out there that maybe still has a few photos that they have been working on, or they want to get out there and get a few more photos, they can go to cottagegrovemn.gov/photo contest, and they can find out more. And there's a prize. There's $50 prize per category. So, you know, it's not just recognition, it's money and recognition here at the council. So get out there, take some photos. I know we've gotten some really great photos over the years, so, and just some fantastic things. And that's for all categories. There also, young ages can also participate in their own category. So it's a great, fun contest. The other thing I would like to just bring up and see if I have support up here of having maybe the city take a look, or we reevaluate some of the code with the liquor license, and maybe take a closer look at a few of those pieces. I think we all struggled with a few things up here tonight, and I guess I'd like to see us just look at that again, and maybe with the public safety, just kind of take a peek at some of that and have a discussion. So,
Okay. Do you want to make that as a motion?
as
to
a
ask?
motion, looking for support.
Okay.
For
So,
staff.
so on this particular item, I've got a motion. And a motion by Councilmember Mills, second by Councilmember Olson. All those in favor, oh, I'm sorry, any discussion? My apologies.
Thank you, Mayor.
Councilmember Dennis.
Well, oh boy. Since I have a license, I can't really be part of the discussion. But I just want to say one thing. Having also been a police officer in my background, police represent the very best of society. And following procedure and law and rules of engagement is something that I have no doubt that our officers are doing. One of the things that I'll say in all fairness is that the officers themselves on a compliance check do not come inside the establishment unless there's been a failure. So what that means is if I happen to be the police officer in that squad and I sent in the underage decoy, even though I may have tried to train that person or, told them what I want them to do, I can't control that individual. So that's one of those things. So I think when you guys look at this and talk about it in this thing that'll be coming before us at the next meeting, I just wanted to make sure, and Joe, if you could maybe cover what I'm going to call the rules of engagement, just so everyone is educated to a good degree to know and understand that fake IDs cannot be provided when a person enters in. And I have always been under the impression, and I'll ask you to verify this, that if I ask a person, are you of proper age to buy, that they are required to be honest with me by law. Now, I've been told by the chief that that's the way it is, but I would like you to verify that. Again, just, training, not just for establishments, but making sure the decoys are trained, that type of thing, so that everything is being executed to the level of excellence and quality that we all feel good about.
I think, obviously, Pete will be at the next meeting, but I assume that the detective sergeant will be here, as well as the 2 compliance officers and probably the decoy herself. And you'll probably get to see and feel the ID that she used when they did that, so.
Awesome. Okay, perfect. All right, Councilmember Olson.
First of all, thank you, Councilmember Mills, for bringing this issue up and suggesting that we take another look at it. I'm just curious if you could elaborate a little bit more on some of the components you might want us to take a look at. I firmly agree, hence the reason for my second. But I'm just wondering if you could take a little deeper dive into what you're thinking.
Sure, I'm all about training, and I know that they get a lot of training, but I would like to, with businesses and things, I'm hoping that, we can work together to help businesses do well. Help them not so it's not a gotcha. And I'm not thinking that our officers are trying to do a gotcha, but sometimes maybe it feels that way a little bit, and I would hate for any of our businesses to feel that way, and that they can work, side by side with our officers with training, that we can take a look at that and maybe look at what this code does. So as we talked about, okay, what's the next step? Is this, and I don't know if there's some state statutes that go in with that. I don't know, Corey, if you can expand on that, if some of it is also state statute. But I know when I saw this big, long list tonight, I went, whoa, what happened? And kind of went, oh, is there something more we can do as a community to make sure they're succeeding as well? And it's not anything against necessarily our officers. So I don't know, Corey, there is more with the state statute?
Your Honor, members of the council, our ordinance complies with the state statute, but there is a state law that says you have to impose these civil liquor penalties. In addition, I don't know if our police department does this, but the servers also are issued a criminal citation, or can be. So there's that penalty as well, just so that you're aware that they do face criminal sanctions as well.
May I add, it's a gross misdemeanor?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
There are certainly other, there's flexibility that you could put into your ordinance right now that you don't have, that maybe is what Councilmember Olson is looking for. You don't have other options built into your code. You have, this is the penalty, bottom line. I think you can put some discretionary language in there that says, or other conditions as maybe the council deems appropriate, such as requiring age verification devices. Yeah, it is not unusual at all to require that at the outset when a new business comes in for a liquor license. You say, fantastic, congratulations, welcome to our community, install your age verification device. Do it on day one. Now, old businesses can be grandfathered in some fashion and say within 5-10 years, if you're still in business and still getting a liquor license, by then you have to install an age verification device, but it takes all discretion out of it. The bartender doesn't have to do math. They don't have to look for the big giant red flag at the top of the driver's license that says under 21, which is hard to miss, by the way. So there are certainly measures that you can put in your ordinance that I'd like you to consider.
Yeah, and if I could just add one quick thing, and then Councilmember Dennis has something else, is as part of this, it might also be good to just survey or gather some information from other cities on what, if they're doing anything different than what we're doing. So I do agree, because that's, I wasn't requiring him to do that, but you're exactly where I was going with that, is like there are tools out there to prevent this from happening. I would love to recommend you go use those tools, because I don't want to see them back in here with the third violation, which is getting to a point where there could be a loss of a liquor license completely, and then their bar is done, and we don't want that. So, Councilmember Dennis?
Well, I was just going to say, different cities handle it different ways. And I remember years ago, my brother, who was involved with bar and restaurant management, this is a number of years ago, so I'll just qualify it by saying that. But the city of Bloomington at that time, I don't think they're still doing it, but I can't prove that. But what they would do is they would kind of use that first opportunity as an educational one. I've been advocating that we bring back the BCOP program. I think this is one of those pieces where we can have our officers go out and engage with our business community to provide information and to help people to be successful. Again, I think that's where everybody wants to be with this. If you look at the county, and I because I am in that industry, the county has indicated that, in quotes, at least once per year, that's what's there. Now, at least once per year doesn't mean at least 10 times a year. It means, and they're drawing their information from the state, once a year for tobacco, once a year for alcohol. And, you know, so instead of having things, and I know we're not trying to be punitive, we're not. We're trying to provide solutions. We're trying to, you know, give people ways that they can become educated and better to succeed. But, you know, what are we doing ultimately to reward businesses that do it the right way? I mean, you're still being dumped in the pot, being tested multiple times a year for that. Like I say, and I just give it as testimony. It's because I have distributor's license, so I've got, that's a whole other thing. But I've got the federal guy coming in twice a year for tobacco. I've got Cottage Grove for tobacco twice, and 2 times for alcohol. And what's funny about that is that 99.998% of what I sell is alcohol. And yet 2/3 of my liability from that standpoint of compliance falls into one small category. Yeah. But I think, you know, there's things that you guys can look at. And again, I'm not going to be part of this. You're going to have to make that decision, because I'll recuse. But I think, you know, how can we structure it and set it up so that we're educating and working with people, building people up to be successful, and ultimately being able to have the pride as a community to say we have 100% compliance.
Okay. All right. So I have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Anything else?
Nope, that's it. Thank you,
All right.
Mayor.
You got it. Thank you. Councilmember Dennis.
Okay, well, since this is the first meeting of 2020, I just want to wish everyone a Happy New Year. And then also just a quick note, both myself and Councilmember Olson are part of the Beyond the Yellow Ribbon group. They will not be having their community meeting tomorrow night. It's been canceled.
Oh, it has been canceled.
So anyone who might be wanting to show up, the armory will be locked and closed. So that's what I have.
All right. Councilmember Thiede.
Don't have too much. I guess one thing is River Oaks activities. There's a beer dinner a week from Friday, and basically it's like a 4-course, and you get a different beer with each one. And the fact that it's Bent Brewstillery this time, there might be some spirits there too. I don't know, but so that's always good to go to, and then. I guess the other thing I'll mention is that, you know, Strawberry Fest, we're getting into full swing, and we've always welcome new people onto the committee to help us plan this fantastic event. You know, so don't be shy. Come on by, and we'd love to have you help plan this. So, and meetings are typically the first and third Mondays of the month, and they're at from 6 till 7 or 7:30. They get longer as it gets closer to the festival, and they're held right here at City Hall. So anybody that has any question or wants to be their email address included to be on the list, give me a shout and I'll make sure it's on there, so.
Sounds good. All right. Councilmember Olson.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll try to be brief, although I have a number of things listed here that I want to just touch on. First and foremost, last night we all had a tremendous time at the Hero Center Public Open House. Very rewarding night, great turnout from the public, unbelievable positive response. So I just wanted to take a moment to make sure to thank some people. Again, HERO stands for Health and Emergency Response Occupations Center. The fact that this building is now operational and that we've actually started to have some training occur in the building. We've had a number of other public agencies that have joined the cities of Cottage Grove and Woodbury in partnership on this building, including Washington County. My understanding is there's some other law enforcement agencies, both at the federal and local level. This is the culmination of a lot of hard work that really started with an idea in 2013 and moved forward into the 2014 bonding bill. So the city of Cottage Grove and the city of Woodbury approached their elected representatives, and it was really Cottage Grove's representatives at that time, which were Senator Katie Sieben and then State Representative Dan Schoen, who got $1.46 million for planning to start this process. Moving forward into 2018, $9.5 million in bonding was secured by Senator Bigham, Representatives Franke, and Representative Juergens. And now we have a facility, and it is state-of-the-art. It is unbelievable. So there's a lot of people to thank, both at the legislative level in the state of Minnesota, along with, Public Safety Director Kerner, former Public Safety Director Woolery, Public Safety Director Lee Vag, all of the various members of the public safety departments of the city of Woodbury and Cottage Grove who, have been involved in the planning and, which screws should go where and what kind of lockers should we have and, how high should the mats go in the mat room. But I'm telling you, anybody who's been in that facility, they can't say for a minute that it wasn't done right. And I couldn't be more excited as a representative of the citizens of Cottage Grove to have this facility in our community, which our law enforcement and our firefighter and our EMS and public safety personnel desperately needed. So thank you to everybody who did such a great job bringing this online. Secondly, speaking of bonding, it's a bonding year in the state of Minnesota. And one of the things that Governor Walz has been very clear about is bonding for water quality in the state of Minnesota. So I'm curious if we as a community have approached our legislative contingent relative to any bonding dollars for water quality projects. I know that Woodbury recently declared a state of emergency, as the city of Cottage Grove did last year, around the PFAS and the other perfluorochemical issues that we've been dealing with for a number of years. So staff, have we done any of that, or do we plan to do any of that?
Mayor, members of the council, the city of Cottage Grove has actually been quite fortunate in the 3M settlement dollars, both using settlement dollars and the actual consent order. We had two water main extension projects to River Acres and to Granada Avenue south of 70th. We have an $800,000 ion exchange pilot study that's being done with conjunction with the state and Johns Hopkins University. And then also, what you'll see at the Planning Commission was our water treatment plant for wells 7 and 8. That's another approximately $3 million. So all in total, I think right now, with monies that we've received to date and what's proposed, we're probably upwards of $16 million in dollars that we've gotten through the settlement or the consent order for that. So when it comes to the actual drinking water, we are been well taken care of and haven't requested that per se for a bonding request.
Okay, do we have any other projects for which we may need to engage our legislative contingent in a bonding year, or do you feel as though we're well positioned?
I think what I'll do is I'm going to speak on it because ironically, I just, we didn't get a chance to team up today. I was the city will be putting forward a stance on, like we've done in the past, on different things that are important to us. And I can stay because I read through some of it and was sharing a little bit with some of my thoughts with Jennifer earlier today. Biomonitoring. The settlement money does not deal with biomonitoring, but we're asking the state, or if the council approves, we will be asking the state to provide funding for biomonitoring, or to continue with biomonitoring, because that money is not consistent. It's not always there. And then there's other pieces that deal with water. But a couple of the other ones that come to mind, because there's things that we've been dealing with over this last year that are on the list, and that's what I was referring to. One is we've had some challenges with massage licensing, and the fact is there should probably be a state mandate as it relates to what's the requirements for massage licensing and accreditation. So that's one, which is I know is on the list. Another item that was on the list that was shared with me was, oh no, it just totally went out of my mind.
Newspaper?
Oh, the newspaper. You know, right now we are required by law that we have to use a local newspaper or a paper with certain type of circulation. With technology the way it is these days, is that truly the best use of taxpayer dollars? And so that's another item that will be on there. Economic development funds, community block grants, all those kind of things are all the things. There's some really, the challenge that I was talking briefly to Jennifer about, our administrator, Jennifer Levitt, about was, do we want to hone in on some very specific things versus having 8 pages? Because if you have like 8 pages of stuff, the likelihood of them saying, yeah, that's fine, you know, whatever, and it gets filed away. The other one I was thinking about is the Highway 61 lighting was the other one that's, you know, so there's certain things that, and I've talked to some of our elected officials that are saying, you can have a variety of things, but tell us 2, 3 things that you really are important to you. Yep, and if that's your important thing, we'll push hard on those 1, 2, or 3 top things. Everything else is fine, but if you send them 30 things, the likelihood of getting anything is limited. And that's really where our administrator and I were, didn't get the chance to really talk today, but we're doing some emails back and forth to kind of put that together for the council to approve.
And the reason I asked the question, Mayor, is obviously, you know, water quality has been something that's been on our radar since about 2008.
Yes.
And we have had the opportunity to enjoy some funding from the state settlement, et cetera. But to our administrator's point, there are some things within that decree that are very specific and some other things that aren't covered. And it just so happens, and I'm sure you're going to talk about this in just a moment, that we're going to have our Cottage Grove Day on the Hill coming up. And so I thought if indeed we did have some bonding requests, that might be an opportunity to, you know, bring those forward. So I wanted to just touch on that briefly. The other 2 things that I'll talk about is we did receive a response from Washington County on a number of CIP comments that we submitted to Washington County. And I wanted to simply note that it looks as though the Gray Cloud Island Regional Park planning issue is still an issue of contention. And I'm just curious if anybody can give us an update on where that stands, because I don't know that we're all singing from the same sheet of music yet. And that may not be for today's meeting, but perhaps moving forward, something that we can get an update on, because that is a very delicate issue that relates back to the comprehensive plan, and you know, the Met Council's involved in all of those fun things. And so I think it would be something that not only this body should probably have a chance to talk about, but also to inform the public, because this letter essentially states that we're not on the same page at this stage of the game. And then the last thing I wanted to bring up is I was unfortunately the victim of a crime on New Year's Eve. For some of you, you know that I've become a bit of a gym rat. And so, you know, I've been eating my Wheaties and walking on my treadmill and doing all the things I'm supposed to do. And when I was at the gym on New Year's Eve, about 5 o'clock, luckily, I had forgotten my iPod that day. I don't know if people still use those, but I do. So I was streaming music on my phone. I figured out how to do that. I have a 15-year-old, so I know that she can help me with those things. And I started to get little alerts on my phone that said that my TCF bank card was being used to purchase hundreds of dollars in gift cards someplace. And I thought to myself, well, how did that happen? Because my TCF bank card's in my wallet, which is in my jacket, which is in my locker, which is locked. So I went and looked, and sure enough, my locked locker was no longer locked, and all my stuff was gone. The challenging part here is when reporting that to the personnel at the gym, I really didn't get very far. In fact, they wouldn't even call a police officer for me. I had to do that from my own phone. But they were very quick to say, you know, we can't be responsible for this. You signed a waiver, and, you know, we're not responsible. So, you know, I asked to speak to a member of management. I asked to speak to a district manager. None of those requests were granted. Very gracious that Officer Sorgard responded quickly once I called, and then you know, Detective Zebarth got involved very quickly, and they've done a tremendous job of working with the personnel at Target, which is where my cards were trying to be used, to identify culprits and those sorts of things. But in the course of this, I've learned that this is very common. And in fact, at this particular facility, there have been 7 or 8 such events, and in fact, there was another one last week, and that event involved the neighbor of one of our members of management and public safety. So as I've had some dialogue with Chief Kerner about this, one of the things that he brought forward is, you know, some other communities have certain ordinances in place, and I think he mentioned St. Paul, so Corey, you might know more about this, but they have some ordinances in place that provide guidance to these sorts of facilities when these things occur and how they should potentially cooperate with law enforcement to help protect the public and make sure that there's not repeated events of this nature. Certainly, you're not going to prevent everything all the time, but I just wondered if that might be something that we need to look at. Because as we think down the line about a YMCA potentially coming to town and other facilities of this nature, you know, I learned that the YMCA in Hastings has been victimized. Lifetime Fitness has been victimized a lot. You know, this facility that I go to has various outlets around the Twin Cities that have been victimized often, and there's all kinds of social media stuff out there about it. And so knowing that we don't have a ton of these in our community quite yet, but maybe as we grow and we get more and we become a bit more of a target, maybe there's something we can do from an ordinance perspective to help protect the public and create some additional guidance for these business owners, similar to what we're talking about doing with the alcohol and tobacco law compliance, that might help them and help us at the same time. So I just wanted to pose that as a possibility.
Okay, sounds good. Anything else?
No.
All right. So a few items that I'll bring up, and Councilmember Olson did kind of briefly mention it, and that is Cottage Grove Day at the Capitol is coming up a week from Saturday. In this case, it'll be January 25th. We leave City Hall here at, I believe, 9 o'clock. I know it says 9:30 here, but I think it's 9:30. And then we leave the Capitol, be back here around 12:30. This is an opportunity for the public to join us up at the Capitol. You get a tour. We get to meet our legislative contingent and then ask questions, which is what Councilmember Olson was doing or mentioning about a little bit earlier. One of the requirements, though, is we do have a bus that you don't have to pay for to be on, but we do need to know if you're coming. And so there is limited seating, so we're asking for you to please sign up. There's an email that's out on our Facebook page and our website to sign up if you're interested, you and anybody else, by the 22nd. Once we know the bus is full, we'll obviously publicize that the bus is full, but we do still have, I was asking our administrator a little bit earlier, we still do have some seats available on the bus. So if anybody wants to join us up at the Capitol on Saturday the 25th, I encourage you to do so. This is the first time that we've actually done this in Cottage Grove as a recommendation. So that's one. Second thing has to do with the holiday train. And it's funny because we're past Christmas, but I did want to acknowledge, and I did get a letter just to confirm it. that we completely blew away once again. This community is just amazing. The targeted amount of money raised and products. And just so the public is aware, if they haven't heard already, the target was to do $90,000 in cash for our local Friends in Need food shelf. In this particular case, this year, our community raised $118,474.26, and we collected 17,000 personal care and non-perishable food items for our food shelf. And so I just wanted to say kudos to everybody in our area. I know our council up here, we're working, I know Councilmember Dennis is on the committee also, set up bagging groceries. I was selling bread. I mean, everybody was really involved in this, really to make this event continue to be one of the best events that Canadian Pacific has in the United States, by the way. They continually talk about how our event is one of their highlights because of the number of people and the support that we get. So I want to thank them for doing this, but I also want to thank everybody for the donations and supporting our friends and neighbors in need. I did want to also mention that the community center process is kind of going behind the scenes. We haven't talked a lot about it. Council kind of did during a workshop not too long ago. But I did want to mention that my mayor's moment that'll be going out next week. We'll be sharing some updated information as we're moving forward. The referendum question will be on the ballot this coming November. And there will be some, I haven't looked at them yet, but I'm being told I have some additional renderings that I think will be able to be released as part of the mayor's moment. There's been a lot of feedback coming in about some of the brochures we're looking at doing to inform the public. At the same time, I did want to just make a real quick plug and just mention that if you are interested in being a part of the committee or the group that will be working to move forward with the community center and inform the public, not specific to the city will inform the public, you know, what's it going to cost you, here's the amenities. There's a separate non-city sanctioned group that wants to put together some of the more of the feedback in that to get the message out to all the public, and whether it's through mailings or whatever, that is not done through the city. If you want to be part of that, you can reach out to me or contact the city and put your name and number down. There is a group kind of forming right now, and there's a few people that have already stepped forward that said that they want to be a part of that group, along with the various associations and such that we've been hearing from. So again, if you're interested, you can reach out to me, or you can leave your name and number with the city, and we'll make sure we get you in touch with that particular group. And then last thing, and I just want to verify to make sure I'm still accurate with this comment as I'm looking to our administrator, am I still doing the State of the City on the 5th?
Mayor, that is the intent.
All right, sounds good. So one of the neat things we've been doing in our city in the last few years, because we have so much to celebrate, Councilmember Dennis and I were actually talking a bit earlier today about some of the information and the things that have been happening over the years, and you heard a little bit about it from the Realtor gentleman that was here earlier. There's a lot of exciting things happening in Cottage Grove, and so my goal is to do another State of the City address on prior to the council meeting on February 5th, so that'll be a Wednesday night, typically around 6:30. We'll finalize that. We'll broadcast that out. I'm assuming we'll be doing hopefully doing a Facebook Live event again. But the key here is I encourage everybody to listen to all the great things that we can look back at for 2019. But also, my goal is to have us look forward into 2020. What's still coming? Because there's things that we've approved in 19 that haven't even opened yet. Like people still ask me about Pizza Ranch. Yeah, Pizza Ranch is coming. They'll be breaking ground later. But there's also a lot of other things that are going to be happening in our community that we've already been kind of approving just to kind of prepare everybody for what's coming. It looks like it's going to be another banner year for the city of Cottage Grove. So I wanted to mention that as a side note. So that is it for my comments. Anything else? All right. So lastly, I'll just mention that we do number 13, which is a workshop, which is open to the public. We do have a workshop this evening. It is a development workshop regarding the Posavad property, which is a proposed housing development that's going to be up near Oatman Middle School. So they're asking for some feedback from the council before going through the process. 14 is a workshop session closed to the public, which we don't have this evening, so we won't be adjourning in here. We will be adjourning in the conference room. So thank you, everybody, and we'll see you on February 5th.